Chapter 1, The Legend of a King. Disclaimer: I do not own Game of Thrones or any of its characters. Thousands of years ago, when the first men came to Westeros, they fought their way through the children of the forest, cutting down their sacred trees and settling in their lands, and together they fought off the invasion of the White Walkers. Peace was achieved when the first men and children decided to make a pact to live peacefully on the Isles of Faces, and to commemorate their pact 100 saplings of wood trees were planted on the Isles of Faces for men to care for. Peace began to take hold, but everything changed with the invasion of Andals and the destruction they brought with them, along with a new religion. Thousands of children of the forest and the first men were killed, and the only place that remained unconquered by the Andals was the north. The north still to this day follows the old gods, except for House Marndaeli, who continue to believe in their 7 gods and followed the new gods. House Stark has been the ruling force in the north for more than 8,000 years and was responsible for building the wall as well, which in the future became the checkpoint against the threat of the White Walkers. Before they went into exile, the children predicted the birth of a Winter King who was going to change the North forever, who would unite the North under one rule and would become a king this world would remember forever. Thousands of years passed and the story of the legendary Winter King became a myth. After the last Winter King, Torrhen Stark, bent the knee to Aegon Targaryen. People knew this prophecy to be false, and with time it was forgotten entirely until something happened in the year 281 AC. Starfall, Dawn, 281 AC. Eddard Stark had fought in the rebellion only for his family, and now most of them were dead. His father, his brother, his sister, all of them were gone now. Hundreds of thousands of fatalities, and in the end he didn't have anything to show for it. He at least had his nephew, who he had declared to be his own bastard for the fear of Robert's wrath that ended the lives of 2 innocent young children and an innocent woman. Eddard had never been more furious in his life when he was presented with the bodies of baby Aegon, Rhaenys and Elia Martell wrapped in red Lannister cloaks. What horrified him, even more, was the lack of empathy from his friend Robert, who was hell-bent on killing every Targaryen in the world. No, he had to keep this secret to himself, as he knew no matter how much Robert claimed to love Lyanna, he would not hesitate to kill a contender to his throne. As Starfall came into view, trepidation grew inside him. He was returning with the body of the best knight of the Dane family, Lord Ulric Dane's own brother, and the ancestral sword of House Dane, while guilt still gnawed at his soul. As he entered Starfall, he was greeted by Ashera Dane. "Why are you here? Where is my brother? What have you done, Lord Stark?" she asked. "I am sorry, my lady, Sir Arthur fell by my sword. I killed him in the quest to reach my sister. You have my condolences." Eddard replied with great guilt. The slap came as expected, and Eddard was relieved by it to some extent. What he didn't expect was what followed afterwards. Ashera told him about her and Brandon's meeting during the tourney of Harrenhal, where they secretly married and consummated their marriage. Soon after the tourney, Ashera became pregnant with Brandon's child, and a year later she gave birth to a boy who she had named Damien. When Eddard looked at Damien, he very nearly started crying. The boy looked exactly like his brother, those dark locks of hair, that long face and full lips. The most remarkable feature of the boy were his eyes. They were a haunting shade of amethyst. The child was going to break many hearts with his looks. Eddard had never been more relieved in his entire life. He knew he was not meant to be the Lord of Winterfell, as he grew up in the south for most of his teenage life, and he would give anything to get out of that position. Though it seemed like the old gods were on his side, as the new heir to Winterfell was playing in his arms, trying to pull his hair. Oh, he knew that Hoster Tully would throw a fit hearing this news, as he based his allegiance on the premise that his grandsons would one day rule the North and the Vale, but he didn't care. Hoster Tully could go fuck himself, he was never going to betray his blood. With Arthur buried and all last rites finished, Eddard convinced Ashera to come to the north with him, where her son could assume the role of the heir of Winterfell. After much convincing, she finally agreed to come to the north. Lord Ulric Dane, Lord of Starfall, was furious, but he couldn't do anything. As they left Starfall with Lyanna's body in a cart and 2 infants in tow, they began the long and perilous journey towards the capital of Seven Kingdom, King's Landing. Chapter 2, Journey to the Capital. King's Landing, Crown Lands, 281 AC. As the northern party consisting of Ned, Ashera, Howland and 2 infants passed through the streets of King's Landing, they came upon the site of utter carnage and poverty. With Tywin Lannister sacking it, the city had reached devastating heights of debauchery, crime and poverty. The city that was once the pride of their continent laid in ruins. All of them were disgusted by it but were helpless to do anything. They could only hope that Robert would help these people come out of their current miserable state and usher into a new era of prosperity. As the Red Keep, the castle of the king, came into sight, the northern party began to prepare itself. On the road to King's Landing, Ashura had taken a huge liking to Little John, and Damien seemed to enjoy his company as well. Within a few days, John began seeing Ashura as her mother figure and cried bitterly when separated from her. Ashura returned the favor by always feeding John herself, besides Damien, and began to see him as her own son. As both the infants were left with the wet nurses, the adults walked towards the throne room. Upon seeing Ned, Robert couldn't contain his joy and approached them. "Ned, it's so good to see that frozen face of yours. Have you found her? Have you found my Lyanna?" Robert asked, eyes full of hope and longing. "I am sorry, Robert, Lyanna died before I could reach her, the summer fever took her." Ned lied effortless. "Sister fucking goddamned dragon spawns. I will kill every last one of them," exclaimed Robert with eyes full of tears and hatred, throwing a jar of wine across the throne room. "What happened was a terrible tragedy, Robert, but Roriger is dead, the Mad King is dead. All the people responsible for our sufferings are gone. I implore you to see reason and let go of this hate you seem to have developed for the name Targaryen. I beg of you, don't spill any more innocent blood. Enough blood has been spilt as it is." Ned reasoned with his friend, hoping that he would see the right way. "Are you a dragon lover now, Ned? They will all die." Robert roared back angrily. Jon Arryn decided to intervene before his wards, whom he thought of as his own children, came to blows. "Enough of this nonsense. Robert, you will rein in your anger. I will not allow any more innocent blood to be spilt. Now who are the children that came in with you, Ned, and why is Ashura Dayne with you?" Jon asked. "The older one is my nephew and Ashura's and Brandon's son. They married in secret before Weirwood Tree at Harrenhal. Meet Damien Stark, the heir to Winterfell and the future Warden of the North." Ned introduced his nephew proudly, who seemed to be relishing in the attention he was getting from the three elders. Robert started laughing as Damien tried to slap him, much to Ned and Ashura's horror. "And who is the other one?" asked Robert joyously as he tickled little Damien, making him laugh. "This is my bastard son, Jon. Her mother perished shortly after giving birth to him. I decided to take him and raise him. I decided to name him after you, Jon, as you are the best man I know," Ned explained, hoping to all the gods that his lie works. As expected, Robert started laughing loudly, prompting little Damien to giggle as well, and Jon Arryn looked proudly at his ward. "I hope this boy becomes like you one day, Ned. He already looks a lot like you and is even a little somber like you," Jon remarked as he tickled his little namesake under his chin, who smiled a little and went back to cuddling Ashura. "He has taken a liking to you, it seems," Jon said to Ashura, who smiled motherly at little Jon. "Yeah, I have taken a liking to him as well. I will raise him as my own son. He will be Damien's shield and give him counsel," exclaimed Ashura as she fondly hugged little Jon, who seemed to be enjoying his adoptive mother's embrace. "Hoster will throw a fit over this. Not only is his grandson not going to rule the North, but Ned has also fathered a bastard. This will cause some strife with the Tullys," remarked Jon as he noticed Ashura hugging Jon possessively. "Fuck Hoster Tully, tell him if he has a problem then he can take it up with the king. I never liked that opportunistic son of a bitch anyway," Robert exclaimed loudly. "Thank you, Robert, I knew I could always count on you to watch my back," Ned said with a slight smile. "Always, Ned, you are my brother in all but blood. I will always have your back," Robert said with emotions clear in his eyes. With the royal wedding approaching, Ned and Ashura stayed a few days in the capital and then began their journey to Winterfell. Ned was excited to meet his son, whom he had never seen due to this pestilential war. He was also filled with trepidation about Catelyn's reaction to all of these new developments. With all these thoughts still in his mind, he began his journey towards his home with its new heir in tow, the North. Chapter 3, The Northern Reforms. Winterfell, the North, 285 AC. "Come on Damien, don't slow down now," Ned Stark shouted amusingly as his nephew ran around the yards of Winterfell Castle. "Just you wait for it, Uncle Ned. One day I am going to be the greatest swordsman in the world, just like Barristan Selmy and Uncle Arthur." Damien declared with a huge grin on his face. "Yeah, keep dreaming, buddy, I will believe that when I see it," Ned teased his nephew. As his nephew pouted cutely and swore on all the gods that he will become the greatest swordsman of all time, Ned looked on in pride at his nephew. His nephew was one of the smartest kids he had ever met. At the tender age of 4, his nephew was already training for combat and attending all the lessons in politics and administration Mayor Stillowin had lined up for him. He was a charming kid with mesmerizing somber eyes and a fiery personality. Ned still remembered when he came back with his northern party to Riverlands. It was not a memory he liked to recall. He remembered Hoster Tully calling him a fool and urging him to name himself as the Warden of the North, which got him so angry that he nearly flew into a rage and almost decapitated that old fossil then and there. He might have been successful in that stupid task had he not been restrained by Howland and Ashura. But the most worrying reaction he got was from his lady wife. She turned so cold to him on the prospect of having a bastard that she refused to speak with him for several weeks. Her treatment of Little John as a disease also didn't go very well with Ashura, to say the least, who made her views known very strongly. It was then decided that John would be kept with Ashura at all times and Caitlin would stop treating him like garbage, which only enraged his wife even more, but she kept her anger to herself. After explaining to his wife all that had occurred during the rebellion, apologizing repeatedly about fathering a bastard and making up with her, they together left for Winterfell. His brother Benjen was heartbroken when he saw Lyanna's body and started crying when he saw Damien. He couldn't cope with the suffering of all the loss that befell upon him and decided to leave for the wall, but constant urging by Ashura and himself made him change his mind. "Well, I am done with today's drill. I will be joining Mayor Stillowin and continue my studies, Uncle Ned," Damien declared as he went over to his brothers John and Robb, who were watching him in awe and were cheering for him all the while he was training. Damien loved his family, he treasured them above anything else in the world, and he would do anything for them. He knew he would one day be the Lord of Winterfell and Warden of the North, and he braced himself for his oncoming trials and tribunals. In a way, he understood that the whole of the North was his family and he was determined to be the greatest Lord of Winterfell this world had ever seen. He began learning letters with Mayor Stillowin when he was 3 and was proficient with the West AOC language. As he began to learn more and more about politics and landscapes of the North, he started to have many ideas that he needed to implement as soon as possible for the North to emerge as a superpower. In a way, he idealized Tywin Lannister, whose cunning strategies and reforms had made him the most powerful man in Westeros. Though he disagreed on some principles, he wanted to emulate Tywin and be remembered forever for reforming the North, and he knew he had to convince his uncle to implement various ideas of his so that when he comes into power the North would already be moving towards a figurative superpower nation. After finishing his lessons, which he enjoyed very much, he went to see his mother, whom he loved the most in the world. Ashura was playing with John when she heard her son walk into her room. "How was your day, my love? Did you do everything assigned to you by Uncle Ned?" Ashura asked as she gazed upon her son fondly. "I did that and more, Mom. I have decided something today, Mom. I will rebuild the North and I will make it the greatest nation in our known world," Damien declared as his little brother tried to tackle him to the ground. Ashura laughed at the comical scene in front of her as she asked softly, "And how are you, a 4-year-old, going to do that?" Damien tickled John into submission and replied, "I will need your help, Mother. I need you to convince Uncle Ned to implement my ideas to reform the North. He will never listen to me, but he will listen to you. Will you help me, Mother?" Ashura looked at her son with pride evident in her eyes. She knew her son was very smart. Mayor Stillowin would never stop gushing about his brilliant student, which was frankly annoying after a while. She made the decision to support her son in his endeavor. "I will talk to Ned, I will convince him to listen to your ideas, my baby boy," Ashura replied softly as she kissed her son on his cheeks. "I am not a baby boy, Mom, I am 4 already," Damien exclaimed as he blushed furiously and rubbed his cheek. Ashura laughed at her son's antics and went to talk to Ned. When Ned heard about his nephew's desire to reform the North, he couldn't help but feel extremely proud of him. He decided to seek out his nephew as he wanted to hear his ideas. Ned entered his nephew's room and found him reading a book on politics and the great civilizations of their world. His nephew was very interested in gaining whatever knowledge he could find and was a strong advocate of the need for education in peasants and nobles alike. He believed that education can truly reform a country beyond regular beliefs. Unlike most men, he was also a very strong supporter of women empowerment. In his nephew's mind, women were as capable as men, and he could never understand why people would manacle half of the workforce of any country by ignoring women. Ned was honestly astounded by his nephew's knowledge and ideologies, and he was very impressed by his nephew's arguments, which would stump even a learned old man. "Your mother said you wanted to speak to me about some reforms you have thought about the North?" Ned asked his nephew, almost startling him. "Uncle, I didn't realize you were here." "Yes, I wanted to talk to you about some things," Damien said as he went and closed the doors. "I want the North to become the greatest country in the world, and to do that I need your help." "Will you help me, Uncle?" Damien asked with a serious face and eyes full of hope. "You are the heir to Winterfell, your wish is my command, nephew." "But what do you want me to do?" Ned asked. "I want to make North the trading center of the world. We have as many mountains as the Westernlands, as many pasturable lands as the rest of the 6 kingdoms combined, and still less than 1 million people live in the North." "Why?" "We are so severely undermanned because we don't provide our citizens with better living conditions." "Well, that's about to change. I want you to write to all the remaining wardens and even the king that we want more populace. Any undesirables that are mucking their streets, they can send them here. I want the women and the men both, as I plan to use all the workforce I have. We have 2 million gold dragons in our treasury the last time I checked. I want half of that money used to build better roads, increasing domestications of animals and birds such as boars, aurochs and chickens by building barns. Inform all the houses near the shores to start cutting down trees and bending planks to build us a fleet and constructing ports that can be used for trade with the Essos and rest of the Westeros and war. Tell them they will be rewarded handsomely to make the incentive sweeter," Damien suggested passionately. Ned remained silent as his nephew spoke further. "I want every available man and women to begin farming on our grounds for potatoes, carrots, cabbages, Brussels, broccoli, celery and anything that can be grown in the cold weathers, seeds of which can be brought from the Essos. I also want you to start the scouring of mountains for any gold or silver vein we can find, and we need to start mining it, immediately. Contact every scholar, alchemist and banished maestus you can reach out to on this continent and start telling them that Winterfell has created an abode for scholars, and we are ready to provide them shelter and food, and all we require in return is their loyal services. I know it's a tall task, but we have to do it, now. Ask Lewin to help you accomplish this task. I will help in whatever way I can, and as we grow richer and more powerful we will invite even more people, trade and bring further richness and culture to our lands. We will create a utopia in this world, a nation where poor are not oppressed and taxed relentlessly, where all lives are valued and all the cultures are respected. We will keep faith and religion away from monarchy and the policies made for the populace. We will build an empire that will last for thousands of years after we have died, and a legacy that will live down millenniums afterwards." Damien finished passionately and confidently. Ned was astounded. He always knew his nephew will be a great man someday, but this was simply inexplicable. A child of 4 wanted to create a nation for everyone, wanted to achieve peace, and was such a powerful orator that he himself was standing with rapt attention, feeling the very passion of the said words course through his blood and soul. He knew what he had to do. "When do I begin, nephew?" Ned asked with passion and fire in his eyes and determination in his voice. "Well, no better time than the present. We begin our efforts today for House Stark to forever be imprinted in the memory of the world and the pages of history." Damien finished with a large grin on his face and fire in his eyes. And so began the Reformation that will go down in history as the legendary Rise of the North. Chapter 5, The Change. Winterfell, the North, 290 AC. Change quickly took hold in the North after the reforms were introduced. After 5 years of relentless work by almost every member of House Stark, almost all the houses in the North and all its citizens, the dream of Damien Stark was a step closer to being realized. When the changes were introduced and other houses of the North were ordered to do so too, there was a little dissent, but the Northerners were nothing if not loyal, and the promise of a reward did incentivize many lords of the North to go along with their wardens' plans. The development took time to take hold in the North, but once it started it increased rapidly and didn't seem to stop. The roads in the North were completed, connecting every castle and important places in the North. Plain roads were created so that the carriages can run on them smoothly and effortless. It connected every new ports, mines and town, and it made the transportations much easier and much more comfortable than any other kingdom in West Eos. A scholastic temple was made in Winterfell which housed all the banished maesters, alchemists and scholars of their continent who were given free rein to research and invent any new devices to help the North or develop new medicines for all the known diseases, and they delivered spectacularly. The scholastic temple invented the plough to till the hard and brittle soil and fertilizers which easily quadrupled the farming output of the North in the first year of its use. They invented methods of producing steel which made steel production dirt cheap and produced the strongest steel in the Seven Kingdoms. They even invented two drinks which became widely popular in the North, namely vodka and whiskey. Both were cheaper compared to wine and were much stronger in comparison, but the best part was that they produced heat in the body, which was a much welcome change in the North. The temple also started producing weapons that were so sharp and strong that they were being compared to the Valyrian steel. The scholars started calling it Damascus steel, which was almost exactly the same as Valyrian steel, in appearance, weight and sharpness, except for Valyrian steel's property of never dulling edge, that couldn't be replicated without finding the lost Valyrian magic. They also developed concrete and cement, which made the process of building towers and castles much more effective and cheap and more durable due to steel being incorporated into its design. They also invented better mining equipment that was used to give better outputs and made the lives of northern miners easier. They made the revolutionary printing press which made preserving documents and storing them much easier, and they also invented the sewing machines which made the process of making clothes effortless and cheap. Under the Reformation, millions defected to the North. The last census conducted had marked the total population of 5 million throughout the North, with House Stark and all the houses providing promised shelter for them and promising them guaranteed work. No one in the North was idle or begging. It was a crime in the North to beg. If you didn't know anything, you would be taught anything you wanted, ranging from farming, mining, sailing, smithing to even sewing and brewing at the town centre, where every man and woman received mandatory and free education under the orders of the new Lord Stark. Under Lord Stark's orders, new homes were created in the forms of buildings that were equal in sizes, and each building had 16 rooms to house 16 families. Each family member over 18 had to learn a skill, and every member under 18, despite their gender, had to attend new schools compulsorily. Every member belonging to any profession was part of a guild which helped them in any way possible by leasing equipment to loans and providing fair wages for their hard work. Every town had a mayor elected by the people who represented their interests and complaints directly to Lord Stark every month, and he would heed their requests and complaints personally. People were provided free healthcare facilities in hospitals, with new medicines made by the Scholastic Temple used to cure many previously incurable diseases, and multiple baths were constructed all across the city for people to maintain cleanliness. Uncleanliness was frowned upon, and people who threw garbage here and there were punished severely. Complete drainage systems were built for proper disposal of waste, and the cities in the North never stunk. People in the North were very happy with their living conditions, but lords were happier still. Every bit of work done by the peasants made them huge profits, and they traded all the goods produced by the people in their lands as they sold them at a moderate subsidized price to their own people and sold them at high prices to other nations. Citizens and lords were so happy with their new warden that their loyalty to their warden was absolute. House Stark gained unprecedented levels of riches with each invention of the temple, as they were all monopolized by the Starks. Every tax that was curtailed from every worker's wage was put into coffers towards the development of the North and its people. House Stark oversaw the constructions of new ports that were built at the Cape Crackan, Widow's Watch and the Cape of Eagles. When an earthquake hit the North, a few natural canals sprung up all around the North, which made farming much easier in many parts of the North, but the biggest canal formed was 50 meters deep and 80 meters wide, passing directly through the Cape of Eagles, directly connecting the Iron Man's Bay to the Bight, which provided a natural fortification for the North, making it impregnable from the south and the north. It also decreased the time for ships to travel to Essos. House Stark also oversaw the construction of a bridge between the Riverlands and the North after much negotiations with host Tully. The Freys were pissed about it, but were afraid of North's retribution if they did anything at all, and hence they kept quiet for now. Starks oversaw the building of the fleet that became their trading lifeline. With a fleet of 300 merchant ships and 200 battleships which were equipped with ballistas, scorpions, better sailors with proper navigation equipment and better hull designs, thanks to the northern scholars, which made their ships faster, better and more durable than any other ship in their known world. The Starks had the largest fleet in the Westeros and were trading everything they made from alcoholic beverages, medicines, crops and even Damascus steel weapons, which were almost as costly as Valyrian steel but was greatly in demand. They traded with Essos and especially Braavos so much that they signed a military and trading pact with Braavos and the Iron Bank, which greatly helped both nations to get richer. The Iron Bank also agreed to open a branch of its bank with a group of Braavosi and Northerners mixed representatives in the north after the Starks promised a deposit of 20 million gold dragons in the Iron Bank, which they had to deposit in the next 10 years. 10 million gold dragons were already deposited by the Starks, making Iron Bank even more stronger of an ally and starting to build its branch in Wintercity, which was situated at the outskirts of Winterfell. The mining of mountains which were filled with gold and silver and most prominently iron, for thousands of years but never discovered, were producing huge amounts of gold and silver for the north too. The mountains were divided equally in all the lords of the north, with the Starks getting twice as much as all the rest combined, but nobody complained as they were not entitled to any of it, yet the Starks gave them mines filled with precious metals for free. The Starks and all the northern lords were getting filthy rich in just 5 years, with their trade booming and their massive fleet and unparalleled development making the lives of their people and their lords much simpler and happier. They had the largest city in the north, manned by 10,000 winter guards just at the outskirts of Winterfell, and it was called Wintercity. Proper designing and planning of the city made it classically beautiful and efficient for law enforcers beyond belief. Schools, hospitals, a child daycare center for working parents, orphanages and guilds were built all over the city, and a set of laws were drafted that gave all the citizens of the city equal rights, and strict laws were incorporated and enforced to fight crime. Capital punishment was given against crimes like murder, rape, corruption, child abuse and treason were punishable by death in the gruesome and torturous manner of crucifixion. The fear of the cross severely reduced crime rates, maintained proper order and fear of law among the citizens. Courtrooms were made to settle disputes of citizens, and were very effective and very popular. They were run by judges after they were trained by the Scholastic Temple. Amphitheater was built in Wintercity where people came to watch plays and tourneys. Free markets were established and farmers were even given huge subsidies on buying of grains. People were flocking to North every day in droves because of the quality of life of its citizens. The North was self-sufficient, it was developing unhindered and at a pace that made everyone look in awe, and it all became possible because of one person's vision. A person who was held among the citizens as the Messiah of gods who changed their lives forever, and the lords of the North revered him and praised him every day for all the prosperity his ideas had brought them. Everyone was loyal to a fault to him because of his love for the North and its people. This person was currently standing in the training yard at the Winterfell castle. "Come on, Robb, don't stand still. Move around a little or Jon will win this round too," Daemon shouted as he saw his brothers fighting with swords, wearing padded armor in the yard. With 1-year-old Arya Stark was perched upon his shoulders, cheering loudly for her brothers. Of all his cousins, Daemon loved Arya and Jon the most, especially Arya. His little sister was just as wild-spirited and energetic as he was, and he spoiled her rotten. He still loved Robb and Sansa very much, but he loved Arya and Jon a little more. Daemon's relationship with Catelyn Stark deteriorated over the years. While Uncle Ned was oblivious, Daemon saw the truth in her eyes. She loathed him, his brother Jon and his mother. Catelyn was jealous of the fact that her son would never be the Lord of Winterfell, especially after rapid development of the North, which Daemon oversaw almost entirely. Her jealousy grew to new heights. Furthermore, to add salt to the wounds, Ashera commanding such respect from common folks and lords alike for her title of Lady of Winterfell made the case even worse. But the real reason for the bitter relationship between Catelyn and Daemon came from her treatment of Jon Snow. Daemon loved Jon just as much as he loved Robb, and he was almost certain that his mother loved Jon even more than she loved him. He was not around much, with all the work he had to do, and with Catelyn treating Jon like a pest that needed to be exterminated. Ashera doted on Jon so much that he forgot all the hurtful things said to him. Jon's heart was made of gold and he forgave everyone very very quickly, while Daemon was the opposite. He held grudges against anyone who committed slights against his loved ones, and Catelyn was a sore thorn on his side for this reason, but since she was family and he would never harm her. Due to the growing animosity between himself and Catelyn, Ned asked for the castle of Moat Cailin to become his seat of power, as he wanted the Starks to guard the entrance to the north too. As hurt as Damien was at the prospect of losing his family, he understood Ned's stance and immediately ordered the reconstruction of Moat Cailin to its old glory, which was just finished this year. Today was the day when Uncle Ned would move into Moat Cailin with his family. Damien was trying his best not to cry as, despite his accomplishments, he was still a boy of 9. "You will write to me, won't you? I am your lord and I command that you write to me as often as possible," Damien demanded childishly while hugging his uncle. "Ha ha, I will, my lord. Sometimes I forget that with all that you have achieved that you are just a boy, an exceptional boy, but a boy nonetheless. I will miss you terribly, nephew," Ned said solemnly as he embraced his nephew who he loved as his own son. With heartfelt goodbyes, the family of Ned Stark moved out of Winterfell to Moat Cailin. As Damien saw the departure of his beloved uncle with tears in his eyes, he understood the pain of separation. At least he had the rest of his family with him. He quickly calmed himself and looked at his uncle Benjen, who looked just as somber and serious as he did, and Little John was bawling his eyes out in Ashara's arms. "Well, I have work to do. I still have to oversee that trade agreement with Pentos. Call for the head of Merchants Guild and Maester Lewin," Damien told his uncle when ex-Maester Coburn, who he made the head of his medical research team, and his personal assistant came running towards him. "Terrible news, my lord. The Greyjoys have attacked the Cape Kraken and burned 20 of our merchant ships. They raided the Flint's Finger and the Stony Shores before being successfully repelled by our navy. The leader of the attack, Roderick Greyjoy, has vowed to take your mother as a sole wife for himself after he pillages and conquers the north. The Greyjoys are now in open rebellion against the crown," Coburn told him hastily and fearfully, knowing Damien's wrath was on the brink of explosion. Nobody made any sound as everyone looked at their lord with fear in their eyes as he grew more furious with every uttered word. "Call the banners, all of them. He wants to take my mother as a sole wife, right? He wants to conquer the north, right? We shall see who conquers who. I vow here and now that I will disembowel that shit stain on his ship and make an example out of him in front of all his people, and then I will exterminate his entire male line from the face of this planet." Damien vowed with so much fury in his eyes, it would make any little man run away in fear. "These sea urchins think they can threaten me and the north. The blood of first men runs through our veins, our blood has ice in it, and we will bring winter to their oceans and their sea gods, where they will all die in loneliness and darkness along with their thrice god-damed religion and with the last thoughts of the winter that came upon them. I ask you, the people of the north, are you with me?" Damien shouted with fury and determination in his eyes, and the entire castle of Winterfell, every man, woman and child roared with him. The time of the test had come. The North had its first challenge, and he was going to make an example out of them and show the entire world the might of the North. Chapter 6, The March. Winterfell, Wintercity, 290 AC. Within a week of the summons, all the houses in the north started rallying levies, and within 4 days an army of 80,000 Northmen stood outside the gates of Wintercity due to better connectivity between towns via roads. Damien modeled the northern army after the Giscari Empire, who were known to be the greatest conquerors before Valyrians came, and they did it without any dragons. Damien ordered the formation in the manner that every 20 men made a unit with a captain at its head, 5 units together made up a platoon with a major as its head, 10 platoons together made up a battalion with a colonel leading it, and 10 battalions together made up a legion which was led by a lieutenant general. The North had, in their haste, only assembled 8 legions of soldiers which stood outside Wintercity and drilled there daily with the rest of their units. Each unit was made up of 15 soldiers, a medic, a cook, a siege engineer, a builder and a smith. Every infantry soldier had to carry his own camping supplies along with his weapons, which comprised of a sword, 2 knives, a shield and a 10-foot pike. Every archer also carried these things with the addition of a better recurve bows and 100 arrows each, and every cavalry carried lances instead of pikes. They were drilled daily for 2 weeks into various formations such as the wedge formation, the phalanx formation, the testado formation and so on. They were all provided with same weapons and armors, which included a chest piece, vambraces, shin guards and a helmet. The most amazing thing was that women also rallied to join the army and were treated as equal soldiers without any discrimination. Strict laws were enacted in regards to rape, killing among themselves and disobeying the chain of command, which were all punishable by death. The lords and people of the North never imagined such an army could exist and were surprised by their drills. They knew this was possibly the deadliest army the Western world had ever seen. With 50,000 infantry, 10,000 archers, 15,000 light cavalries and 5,000 heavy cavalries, combined by its discipline, siege and battle tactics being drilled daily into their minds, this army was almost undefeatable. The troops had amazing speed, amazing efficiency, and were loyal to a fault. Every northerner knew that the Ironborn were fucked. As the northern army prepared for war, the navy was not behind. 200 war galleys along with the 100 merchant ships were used to prepare the total might of northern navy. Every navy crew had a captain, 5 sailors, 5 navigators, 10 builders, and 10 engineers and supplies for the war on board. They could carry 200 men on a single ship along with their horses. All the ships were remodeled with the help of scholars who installed ballistas, scorpions, and made design improvements to the ships that gave them more speed, better maneuver abilities with strong and durable designs. The crew knew that these ships were 10 times better than all the regular ships, and they were laced with weapons. They even had a secret weapon which scholars told them to handle with care and never to use unless ordered by their captains. With the entire northern army well equipped, well provisioned, well prepared and ready to move, the plans of the invasion were drawn up. All the lords of the north were together in the war council room discussing plans of invasion. My uncle, Eddard Stark, will be the general commander of the United Northern Army. Benjen Stark, Roose Bolton, Great Jon Umber, Galbart Glover, Mage Mormont, Ricard Karstark, Howland Reed and myself will become Lieutenant General of all the 8 legions, with a legion each under our command. We will use half the might of our legions for invasion, with half remaining forces will be used to reinforce the northern defenses all along our shores, the wall and Moat Cailin. We will lead our army of 40,000 men via 200 ships of our fleet and leaving a 100 behind for reinforcing our borders and fending off any Greyjoy retaliation. Damien explained as every lord banged their tables showing their agreement to the plans. You are a little too young, nephew, to lead a legion. Let me and all the lords of the north do battle in your stead. Eddard reasoned with his nephew with worry clear in his voice. Eddard knew his nephew was an exceptional fighter, way beyond any kid of his age and better than many of the great lords, maybe including himself. His nephew inherited his legendary uncle Arthur Dayne's skill in swordsmanship and was a dual wielder and ambidextrous. He was a terror on the training fields, often embarrassing Sir Roderick Castle, who was put in charge of his battle training, by defeating him and taunting him. His nephew was a legendary swordsman in the making, but he was still too young. He used 2 Damascus steel falchions which provided him better flexibility and versatility in the training fields, and his speed was the stuff of legends. He was also very quick, so much so that Ned himself was hard-pressed to track him while moving around on the training ground. He was young but agile, and although short, with a height of 4 feet 2 inches, he was still a menace. He was unpredictable and cunning beyond belief, but as an uncle he still worried. I will not sit idle as my men give their lives for me. I will stand with them, among them, and fight with them. I know I am too young, and that's why I gave you the command of our army. I will not be called a coward, uncle. The blood of the first men runs through my veins, and I will be damned if I let others fight on my behalf while I sit in Winterfell. This is my decision, uncle, and my decision is final. Damien ordered with steel in his eyes and passion in his words, which prompted every lord present to cheer loudly for his nephew. Eddard resigned with a dejected but proud look on his face. His nephew was truly the greatest man he ever knew. He is a true wolf of the North, Ned, not some southern pussy. He will stand and fight with his men till his last, just like every northerner worth his salt would. Great Jon roared while clapping Damien on the back so heavily that he was almost flung off his seat. I and my daughters are already in love with our Lord Paramount for his belief and ideology about equality of men and women. I will always stand by his side, and as will every northern lord. Mage teasingly remarked, getting snickers and roars of approval from all the lords of North except for Damien, who was blushing horribly. All right, that's enough, we need to discuss strategies for the upcoming invasion. What is your plan, my lord? Ned asked his nephew, as he wanted his nephew's opinion first. We will attack with all of our invading troops simultaneously, hitting Harlaw, Orkmont, Blacktide, Saltcliffe, Old Wyk and the Great Wyk simultaneously. We will divide the ships among our 8 legions, and each legion attacking each island with the exception of Great Wyk and Harlaw, where 2 legions will attack together. I, Uncle Ned and Lord Roose will attack Harlaw, Uncle Benjen and Lady Mage will attack the Great Wyk, Lord Jon, Lord Ricard, Lord Howland and Lord Galbert will attack Orkmont, Blacktide, Saltcliffe and Old Wyk respectively. We will take them by surprise while burning and stealing their ships. We will lay siege to all these islands and conquer them within 3 days with our new, improved and devastatingly more powerful siege engines. We will kill all the Iron Islander and spare and care for all their salt wives, their children and their women. Speed and the superior army will be our winning factors. We will surround Pike on all sides, and on the 4th day we will attack Pike, before the king and his army comes to reinforce us. By the end of the week, Pike would fall, where we will end the male Greyjoy line, permanently. We will conquer Pike before the other kingdoms even arrive, and we will establish our might in front of the whole Westeros. Damien declared, with hatred of the Greyjoys clear in his eyes and determination and passion in his voice. Every northern lord looked at the child with a fascination and great respect. They were all silent until Ned Stark broke the silence. "Shouldn't we pardon some of the men who surrender, nephew? What you are thinking of doing is not honorable," Ned declared with worry and doubt in his voice. "Honor has no place in the battlefield, uncle. The most honorable side on the battlefield is more prominent to lose because of its ethics. War is a bloody business, and the bloodier it is, the quicker it will end. Besides, I have no sympathy for these coward rapists who invade our land, who take our women, who steal, plunder and rape because of their religion. I will exterminate them and their religion from this world. Honor helps you in living your life, not killing your enemies," Damien replied with passion and calmness in his voice. "Do you stand with me or do you stand with honor, uncle? What I am about to do will terrify you, but know that I do this for the good of the world and the North. Do you trust me?" Damien asked with a slight fear of rejection in his eyes. "I will always trust you and stand beside you, my lord. Never forget that. I approve of your plan. I couldn't have devised a better plan myself," Ned said, smiling and patting Damien on his head, with every lord smiling serenely at the scene and agreeing with Ned. "Thank you, uncle. Prepare yourselves, northerners, we move out in 2 hours." Damien shouted to other lords, who roared in approval and started moving. Everyone assembled outside the gates of Winterfell, ready to move out. In the Winterfell yard, Jon cried bitterly as he hugged his brother, who was in full plated armor with his dual sword strapped to his shoulders, as his mother stood over her sons with tears and fear in her eyes. "Why do you have to go to war? People die in war, I don't want you to die. Please don't go," Jon pleaded with his elder brother, whom he loved with all his heart. "I have to do it, Jon. I am the heir to Winterfell. If I won't fight for the North, who will? I may not be here, but remember, you are the Stark in Winterfell now. You will look after our mother, won't you?" Damien asked as he smiled at his little brother. "I will look after Mom, you go and win the war. I will be the Stark in Winterfell and protect our mother with my life," Jon declared with passion and determination in his voice. Damien chuckled as he embraced his brother one last time before turning towards his mother, who was openly weeping by now. "Come back to me safely, my darling baby boy, I love you so much. I don't know what I would do without you. If something happens to you, I will never forgive you, do you hear me?" Ashura commanded as she embraced her son, repeatedly kissing his face, which made Damien blush horribly, but he didn't push her away. "I love you too, Mom, and I will return to you, I promise," Damien promised as he kissed his mother's cheeks. He mounted his horse and together they reached the outskirts of Winter City as the city cheered for them as they departed. When they reached the Northern Army, all the soldiers were briefed via the commander of their strategies and tactics for the upcoming war. Everyone stood still as Damien addressed them from upon the city battlements. 2 weeks ago the Iron Islanders attacked us, burnt our ships and threatened to conquer us. 2 weeks ago the Ironborn declared rebellion against our good King Robert. In 2 weeks we Northerners assembled the greatest army this continent has ever seen. In 2 weeks we are ready for an all-out battle with those Ironborn cunts. We Northerners are the descendant of the first men. We are hard sons of bitches who don't respond kindly to threats. We are the one who makes and follow on their threats. Now the time has come to face our enemies on the battlefield, now the time has come to send these Ironborn cunts back to their drowned gods, the time has come to wipe out every Ironborn from the face of this world, and I promise every Northerner here that by the end of the coming 2 weeks we will conquer the Iron Islands and avenge our martyrs and thousands of families who have lost their loved ones to these pests. So I ask you Northerners, will you stand with me? Will you fight for the North to become the greatest and most powerful country in the known world? Will you fight to avenge our dead men, women and children? Will you fight for yourselves and all that you have lost? Damien finished shouting as he looked upon the assembled soldiers and lords. I. The entire northern army exploded with cheers and everyone started to bang their pikes on the grounds. Then charge, my friends, to our victory, Damien announced as he went down from battlements and mounted his horse and led his army, which was marching with perfect discipline, in perfect rows, columns and rhythms as drilled into them, with all the lords at the forefront of their legions, and leading them all were Damien and Ned Stark. And thus began the march towards the first battle that Northern Empire would ever face. With hopes in their hearts and fixed goals in their minds, everyone marched towards the first step towards establishing North as the superpower of their world. Chapter 7, The New Superpower. And thank you for all the support and reviews, you guys, it means a great deal. I would like to point out that my story is still relatively new, that is why it is so similar to the crossover, as I have to build my character up. But the real twist of my stories begins with the canon story of Game of Thrones, so bear with the similarities for a little while. The main difference in my story is the lack of the presence of magic, which in my mind makes it more realistic and closer to the real story. The rapid growth and unrealistic growth of Damien is also a part of mystery which will be revealed in the later chapters. I hope you guys continue reading it and keep showing your support. And now, without further ado, let's begin with the story. Warning: this chapter has brutal scenes filled with mentions of torture. King's Landing, Crown Lands, 290 AC. Robert Baratheon was sitting at the head of the small council table as he sipped his whiskey. Damn, those northerners make some strong and hard shit. Robert thought. Where the fuck is that old man? Why has he called me here? Doesn't he know that I had an important appointment? Robert complained. Stannis looked at his brother in utter contempt as he replied. He has called you for a good reason. If you would just stop complaining and be patient, you will know. And please, important appointment. You were just going to fuck whores. Fuck you, Stannis. I am the king and I can do as I please. Robert angrily replied to his brother's retort. Jon Arryn entered at this moment and he was followed by Varys, who looked too somber for some reason. Just this once, would you please rein in your antics, Robert? I have called you here for a matter of grave importance. Jon said somberly. Well, out with it then. What has happened? Have we found the dragon spawns? Robert asked, hoping to end that cursed line forever. No, your grace, but a grave matter has come to light. The Iron Islands have rebelled against the crown and attacked the North and Lannisport. Balon Greyjoy has declared himself the king of Iron Island. Varys informed the king, knowing what was going to happen. What? That piece of shit thinks he can fuck with me. Robert roared, standing up with all his fury. Robert, calm down. We have to know everything related to the matter before we decide our course of action. Jon said as he gave Robert a pointed look. Robert growled, but he sat down and asked Varys to continue. The entire Lannister fleet has been devastated and burned. Many men and women were taken captive by the Greyjoys. Though the good news comes from the north, it seems, as the Greyjoy attack failed severely and North repelled the attack with their new fleet. Greyjoys are now planning to attack the Reach. My king. Varys finished his report and sat down. This cannot go unpunished. Those Ironborn cunts have been a sore thorn in my side for quite some time, but this cannot be ignored any longer. Call the banners and call all the lords with their armies at Banefort, Riverlands in 3 weeks. I will join them there with the might of Stormlands and Crownlands. Robert commanded his small council. Robert, don't do something incredibly reckless in your rage. Forgive them if they surrender. Remember that you are better than the Mad King. Jon advised Robert. At least the North is spared the pain of suffering at the hands of those Ironborn savages. How did they repel the attack in the first place? Pycelle asked Varys. I am afraid I don't know much about the situation in the North. We all know that North has developed rapidly and generated a huge deal of taxes for us. People are flocking to the North every day. Nothing short of a miracle, that the poorest kingdom of Westeros is now the contender to become the strongest and most powerful kingdom of Westeros. Varys replied in a monotone. He was astounded by the things the new Lord Stark had done for his people and he respected him for it. The North is getting too powerful, Your Grace. Other kingdoms are asking you to intervene in North's policies as more people are flocking to them every day and every kingdom's economy is getting affected in one way or another due to the North. Baelish said with a smirk on his face. Oh, how Petter hated the Starks for taking his Catelyn from him. He would hurt them any chance he got. The policies of the North are troubling. It has not only made its economy much stronger as compared to other kingdoms, but it has also made the life of the peasants so easier that everybody wants to flock to the North. Kingdoms are losing manpower and their economy. We have to do something about it, Robert. Jon said gravely. He didn't want to interfere with the North and its progress, but he was compelled to do so on behalf of other kingdoms. No, I will not interfere with the North. The North has suffered for thousands of years and everyone has profited from their suffering. Now that the North finally starts to rise and these kingdoms start feeling uncomfortable. No, they can go fuck themselves. So long as I am the king, North will develop unhindered. That's my final decision on this matter. Robert commanded strongly. He was so proud of little Damian for what he was doing and he would help him in any way he can. Varys and Stannis openly smiled at Robert's declaration as they both were interested in the good of the realm. Jon was conflicted, but in the end, he was happy with Robert's decision. Pycelle and Baelish were furious, but they controlled themselves. Oh, how Pycelle hated the North for all its scholarly developments. Every maester at the Citadel was envious of the way Northern scholars were treated and their discoveries were the talk of every debate in the Citadel. The freedom the Northern scholars enjoyed in their research was huge and they received such huge funds from the North for their research. Pycelle hated the North and the Northern scholars and wanted them gone. That's why he was writing about it to Lord Tywine. He knew Lord Tywine would help him, but for now, he will keep his intentions to himself. Prepare our armies, Jon. We move out in 3 weeks to rid the continent of this pestilential rebellion. We will bring Iron Islands to heel and avenge the losses faced by Westernlands and the North. Robert declared as he stood up and walked out of the small council chamber. Everyone hurried to carry out the king's bidding, and within 3 weeks the combined army of the Westernlands, Stormlands, Crownlands, Reach and Riverlands were assembled as they marched towards Banefort by the end of the 4th week. Pike, the Iron Islands, 290 AC. Balon Greyjoy was cursing his luck and praying to the drowned god for a miracle right now. The Northerners had annexed all of his islands one after another with impunity. They had such a disastrous army that no Ironborn army could fight them. They had better weapons, better discipline, better tactics, and don't even get him started on that new cursed invention of theirs. The survivors came running to Pike telling tales of the most fearsome army that could do anything and conquer anyone. They fought as one group and their discipline and loyalty were nigh unbreakable. Some even went as far as saying that this army was undefeatable. Then there was the talk of the blasted concoctions of northern heathens which set white fire all across the area it was spread on with the help of a catapult, and it was unquenchable. It burned so hotly that it could melt wood, stone, steel, and couldn't be doused by water. It took time to ignite and Northerners knew how to quench it. That's why it was safer than wildfire and was far more destructive in its nature. They called it the Winterfell. Balon felt like his whole glorious invasion of Westeros was forever going to be a dream, but his brothers assured him to keep going as the drowned god was with them, and so he did. The Northerners had conquered 6 islands in just 3 days and were blockading all exits from Pike. He was surrounded on all sides, and this morning he had heard that Northerners had begun their journey to Pike. With all his loyal supporters and lords gone and with the Northern army advancing towards them, he was desperate for a miracle. Balon contemplated and discussed his battle strategies with his brothers when a sentry burst into his room to convey the message that he had been dreading for days. The Northerners were spotted approaching. The Apollo, Iron Man's Bay, 290 AC. Oh, how Damian loved his personal ship, which he named the Apollo. His ship was the largest of the battleships in his entire fleet, with a roaring silver direwolf etched on its hull and on its sails. His plans for conquering Iron Islands had gone on perfectly and they had come a long way. He still remembered his first battle on Harlaw. Flashback starts. As the Northern legions led by Damian, Ned and Roose came near the island of Harlaw, a fleet of 200 Ironborn ships came in their sight, led by Roderick Greyjoy along with Roderick Harlaw and Dunstan Drum, who would look pretty smug right now seeing as only 35 Northern ships approached them. Their joys quickly turned to horror as the Northern ships were sinking the Ironborn ships left and right with their scorpions, ballistas and North Fear from a great distance. They sunk nearly 150 ships until they came into range of the Ironborn men. By now the Ironborn knew they were fighting a losing battle and they started to retreat, but they were horrified to find 5 new northern ships flanked them, and one of them was the largest ship they had ever seen. As the Ironborn didn't want to die, they quickly surrendered, except Roderick Greyjoy, who fought tooth and nail until he was captured. The Northerners captured the rest of the 50 ships and quickly replaced its Kraken sails with the Direwolves ones. Atop the Apollo, the prisoners were brought before Lord Stark and Lord Bolton. Well, if it isn't Roderick Greyjoy. I remember you vowing to conquer the North and taking my mother as your sole wife. Looks like you Ironborn cunts are only good for barking and killing defenseless people. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Damien asked with contempt clear in his eyes. Roderick spits on the floor, for which he was beaten mercilessly by Northern soldiers until Damien stopped them. Even Lord Harlaw and Lord Drum were struggling and cursing by now through the Ironborn soldiers were calm and collected. Well, it's a shame. Soldiers, kill every Ironborn man present here except those 3. Damien orders, pointing at the lords. The Iron Lords watch in horror as every capture soldier was butchered mercilessly, and they started to curse and struggle even more. May the drowned god curse you for all eternity, boy. May you rot in hell forever. Roderick Harlaw shouted with falling as he was forced on his knees. Don't worry about me, Lord Harlaw, you keep the fire of hell hot for me while I join you there in 80 or so years. Until then I will keep good care of Nightfall. Damien said to Lord Harlaw as he decapitated him with a single swing of his sword. You bastard! How dare you! He was my uncle. I will kill you, you motherfucking Greenlander! Roderick Greyjoy shouted as he thrashed against his captors. Don't get impatient, Roderick, you will get your turn, but first I have to greet the great Lord Drum. Damien mocked as he stepped over Harlaw's corpse after taking his family sword Nightfall, which was Valyrian steel, and now started walking towards Lord Dunstan, who was also kneeling and shaking as he saw the little monster in front of him approaching him with the coldness of winter in his haunting eyes. Mercy, my lord, please, I only did what my lord ever commanded me. Lord Drum shouted as Damien stood in front of him. When your home is pestered by maggots, flies and pests, do you spare them, Lord Drum? Damien asked calmly. Dunstan slowly shook his head in a fashion of saying no, and in the next moment, he was decapitated by Damien, who calmly looked down on him for a while, after which he turned towards Roderick Greyjoy with an evil smile on his face, who was shaking in fear as Damien approached him. Don't worry, Greyjoy, you will not die today. You will not die for a very long time to come. Lord Bolton, flay him slowly and see what he knows about Pike and its defenses. Once he has given up everything, then and only then castrate him, and when he begs you to kill him, bring him to me. Damien commanded as he turned to walk away towards his cabin, as Lord Roose stepped forward with a sick smile towards Roderick, who started shouting for mercy but was dragged away by the soldiers to the brigs as Lord Bolton followed them. Ned watched the scene in front of him in utter horror as he saw the monstrous acts committed by his nephew. As his nephew left for his cabin, he slowly followed him and was astounded to find that Damien was leaning on the wall of his cabin, hugging his knees and crying bitterly. Ned knew that killing someone for the first time was always tough, but doing what Damien just did, Ned could never understand how his nephew felt, and so he did the only rational thing he could do and embrace him. I did monstrous things today, Uncle Ned, and I know my soul is damned forever, but I did it for the North and for my people. Thousands of families have been avenged and got justice today, and the damnation my soul is a very small price to pay for this, and I paid it today. But I ask you this, does it ever get easier? Damien asked as he wept and hugged his uncle. I agree, what you did today was horrifying, but you did it for your people. You did what every great leader should do. You yourself said that honor had no place in war. It will get easier with time, but you will have to learn to live with it. Such is the curse of being great. It makes you do terrible things, things that you never imagined yourself doing. But you do it anyway for the good of your people. Ned replied as he shed some of his own tears of past as he embraced his nephew even tightly. Flashback ends. Damien pulled himself together after that night and quickly and strategically conquered the entire island of Harlaw and all its castles in just 3 days. He killed all the men and took care of all the women, children, and even freed the captured salt wives. He let some of the men escape on purpose to mentally torture Balon Greyjoy, with making him realize the hopelessness of the situation as the North advances on him. He executed every lord he captured whether they surrendered or not, and by the fourth day the Northerners fortified Harlaw and all the other captured islands and began their journey towards Pike. Soon the entire Northern fleet came together. Together with an armada of 200 Northern ships and 100 captured Iron-born ships, the North advanced towards Pike. Pike, Iron Island, 290 AC. Upon the battlements of Pike, Balon watched in horror as an armada of 200 Northern ships approached him. This was twice the size of his present iron fleet, as the rest were sunk or captured by the Northerners. What was even worse was that he never expected the Northerners to arrive so quickly, and many of his ships were unmanned, which meant he couldn't fight them in the sea where their real power lied. Now he would have to fight on the ground, which was the Northerners' forte. Balon watched as his fleet of 25 ships were sunken with impunity and the rest of the 75 ships were captured by the Northerners. He prepared himself for battle as Northerners landed on his shores. But to his surprise, they didn't attack but started building siege weapons. Balon thought this gave him another day or two to consolidate his army and shore up his defenses, but to his horror, the catapults were up and running within hours. He, his brothers, his sons and daughter all watched in horror as Northerners started shelling the walls with jars filled with winter fuel. The archers came after that, firing a barrage of flaming arrows at the wall, which ignited the substance as it engulfed the entire walls in almost an instant. After the walls fell, the Northerners charged in a uniform formation as they systematically killed any Iron Islanders in their way. As the Northerners were at the gates of the castle of Pike, House Greyjoy surrendered. Balon, his brothers Aeron, Victorian and Euron along with his sons Maron and Theon and his daughter Yera were brought as captives in front of a boy of 9 who had conquered the entire Iron Islands in 4 days. Damien watched impassively as the entire Greyjoy family stood in front of him. Balon and Victorian were calm, Euron and Maron were laughing like maniacs, Aeron prayed and cursed him as a heathen, and Yera and Theon were looking at him in unadulterated fear as they wept. At that moment Damien had a choice. He could exterminate their cursed line forever, or he could spare the children and help them to be better humans. In the end, he chose to be better than Tywin Lannister. But he needed to send a message to the rest of the world about consequences of fucking with the North, so he impaled Balon, Victorian along with an almost dead Roderick on the walls of Pike. He crucified Euron and Maron to the walls of Pike as well, and he hung Aeron from the battlements where everyone could see, and then had his body burned and scattered in the wind as an act of destroying his religion permanently. All the soldiers and men in Pike were killed, whereas women and children and sold wives were cared for. The youngest children of Balon swore fealty to House Stark in perpetuity, and Yera was declared as the Lady of the Iron Island, which decided to now be part of the North. She was betrothed to Eddard Karstark for Lord Rickard Karstark's years of loyalty to House Stark and to formally tie their lands together. The Salt Throne was carved out and thrown into the ocean. Peace and order were established all around the Iron Islands, and in 3 days ravens were sent to all the houses, and the king that North has conquered and defeated the Iron Islands in the Crown's name and ended their rebellion, showing its power to the rest of the world and establishing itself as the superpower of their world. Chapter 8, The Paradigm Shift. Thank you everyone for giving me this amazing reaction. I never imagined that as a first-time story writer, I would garner so much attention within such a short period of time, and I am extremely thankful for that. I also want to thank all the critics who have helped me improve my writing skills. I also wanted to point out that there is a mysterious plot surrounding Damien's impractical skills, the growth level and intellectual prowess, which will be solved as the Chronicles unfolds. The fast-paced development of the North and the characters is to catch up with the canon story, from where my real story begins. So bear with me for a few more chapters. Thank you everyone, and please keep reading and supporting me. Near Pike, Iron Islands, 290 AC. As the allied forces of 5 kingdoms sailed towards the Iron Islands, everyone had only one question on their minds. How? How did the northern forces conquer the entire Iron Islands in just 4 days? How can the people of the North become this powerful without anyone noticing it? Throughout the whole journey from Banefort to Pike, all everyone was talking about was the North's actions. Everyone was surprised as they reached Banefort in full combat readiness when they were informed that the North had conquered the Iron Islands, killing all the Ironborn men and ending the entire adult Greyjoy line and all the other lordly family lines in the Iron Islands. What was stranger still, was the fact that the Northerners did it in just 4 days. This was unheard of and sent warning bells in all the lords' minds about the power of the North, and the tales of their legendary army or their superior weapons were not easing their anxiety. The king and his council, along with the other lords of Westeros, were discussing the course of their actions as they sailed towards the Iron Islands. This is an outrage. How can the North gain this much power and commit so many atrocities without the knowledge of the king? Mace Tyrell shouted as he tried to make his case to the rest of the council. That's enough out of you, Tyrell. At least they did something, unlike you who has been stealing the praises of his bannermen by declaring their accomplishments as your own. Robert roared at the fat flower as he defended the North. Mace looked thoroughly cowed as Stannis and Randyll Tarly openly smiled at his ashen features. They both hated him for obvious reasons, but they kept their hatred to themselves. But both agreed that it was satisfying to watch that coward be put in his place. But this is a worrying thought, Robert. The Northerners have completely conquered the entire Iron Islands in just 4 days, also committing huge atrocities in the Crown's name. We have to deal with this issue strictly, lest it will set a bad precedence. Jon said gravely as he pondered on the North's action. He was disappointed and disgusted by Damien's actions. He thought Ned's nephew would be as honorable as himself, but clearly he was proven wrong. Though the most unexpected person came to the North's defense. They didn't do anything wrong. I myself would have done the same if I had reached the Iron Islands first. They protected their lands and punished the appropriate party in accordance with the law, as is their right. Their speed and power are indeed unheard of and a bit worrying, but they are not to be blamed for our ignorance. Tywin said in a cold and collected voice. Oh, how he enjoyed shocking people. He really believed that the North was in the right, and he was very impressed by their course of action. The tales of their army and their weapons were indeed a bit worrying, but the Starks were a staunch supporter of Robert and his monarchy, which meant that they indirectly supported his grandson who was next in line. He was particularly impressed by the new heir to Winterfell who, like himself, had changed the course of an entire nation based on his cunning and his reforms. He was excited to meet him and hoped for a better relationship with the North under this new regime. Ha ha ha, he got you there, Jon. Well done, Tywin. I will speak with Damien first before declaring a verdict. Robert replied, laughing. A member of the Allied army burst into the room to inform everyone that they were about to land on the shores, and so everyone parted to prepare for the landing. As they made the landing, they were greeted by the entire Northern army assembled in front of them. Standing in proper discipline in symmetrical rows and columns as they looked on impassively. At the head of the army stood all the lords and ladies of the North who were atop their horses, lined up right behind the heir to Winterfell, who slowly dismounted from his horse as he approached the king. Everyone present was thoroughly intimidated by this display of power and watched closely as a boy of 9 approached the king with such grace that anyone would be forgiven for thinking him of the royal family. As Damien approached the king, he slowly bowed and took a knee. The Iron Islands are yours, your grace. Damien declared in full seriousness. Robert started laughing as he beckoned the boy to stand up. Enough with the pomp. Come and embrace your king. Robert declared as he slowly embraced the child. You have grown so much, my boy. I am astonished by your accomplishments and so very proud of you. Robert said as he let Damien out of the embrace. Damien smiled kindly as he replied. Thank you, your grace. Come, we have much to discuss. Robert said as he started walking towards the castle of Pike. All the lords led by Damien started to follow suit. As soon as Robert saw Ned, he immediately moved ahead to embrace his friend and started talking about the past few years. As everyone approached the castle of Pike, people looked up in horror as the impaled and crucified bodies of the adult Greyjoys came into sight upon the castle walls, walls which were badly burnt and broken in many places. People started to realize the message that North was trying to convey with this revolting display: don't fuck with us, we will fuck you back. Harder. No one broke the silence as they entered the castle halls with the king, who was greeted by 2 children, who knelt as they saw the king coming. Pike is yours, your grace. We apologize for our father's foolish actions. We have decided to show you our loyalty by permanently becoming a part of the North. We have also decided to follow the old gods from now on, until the end of times. We just need your blessings and permission, your grace. Yara declared as she looked at the ground as she knelt before the king. Everyone was astounded and furious at this declaration. The Iron Islands joining the North would basically give the North complete control over the Sunset Sea, thus increasing their power and might even further. This was terrible news for the rest of the kingdoms, and many were about to protest when the king spoke. "That's a very good decision, young lady. I am happy that you decided to join the North. The North has raised many a great men and women. As your king, I will grant you your wish to become a part of the North, and I give you my blessing," Robert declared as he felt pity for the little girl, kneeling in front of him. As he dismissed the girl, he decided to hold a meeting of the lords to discuss the details of the arrangements in regards to the Iron Island. "My lord, this is an outrage. Why are the Iron Islands being given to the Northerners? They committed such atrocities here. You cannot allow this, your grace." Mace Tyrell shouted as he expressed his views strongly, as many other lords nodded with him. "What I did was to protect my lands and to help my people avenge the deaths of thousands of northern men and women who have suffered at the hands of these pests for years. I exterminated a cursed line of rapists, plunderers and thieves, and I don't need your permission to do so, Lord Tyrell. In case you didn't know, they attacked us first. We just responded in kind." Damien finished impassively as everyone looked at him with different feelings. "But you could have shown mercy. Why commit such horrible acts of violence?" Jon asked. "Because some people don't change until they are provided an incentive. This act of violence was that incentive. You show mercy to those who deserve it, those who can be redeemed by it. I showed mercy on the children because their souls and hearts are pure and they deserved mercy. But if you ask me to show mercy on the people who have lived their lives by torturing and raping other people, then I will be forced to question your loyalty to your kingdoms and your people, my lord." Damien replied calmly. Everyone was astonished at his answers. He had cornered the hand of the king with his argument. Tywin openly smiled at the scene playing out in front of him. In the end, the North was exonerated and even praised by the king, who was in return gifted with the riches collected by the Northern army in their conquest. A total sum of 3 million gold dragons was seized and confiscated and was equally divided among the Crown and the North. In the end, the North not only established itself as one of the most powerful nations in the world but also profited immensely from this short war. All in all, everything was going exactly as Damien planned. Beyond the wall, the North, 290 AC. Unknown to anyone at the time, in a forgotten part of the world, something terrible had happened. Thousands of miles away, beyond the wall in the land of always winter, after 8,000 years, the Night King finally opened his cold and dead blue eyes, as look at the world around him once more. Chapter 9, the game begins. And, once again, I would like to start by thanking my readers and supporters, without whom I couldn't learn to be a better writer. In this chapter my story has caught up with the canon story of Game of Thrones. Here is where my real plot starts to unravel, and all the questions about Damien's unnatural growth and abilities will be answered in the future as the plot deepens. So without further ado, let's begin. Winterfell, the North, 298 AC. "Come on, Jon, you can do better than that." Damien taunted his brother as he deflected his brother's sword. "Just you wait, you fucker, I will beat you this time," Jon shouted as he attacked Damien again. "In your dreams, brother mine," Damien taunted again, though he was struggling to keep up with Jon's onslaught. They fought ferociously, hitting each other several times until Damien finally disarmed Jon with a counter-riposte. "By the old gods, you are an amazing fighter, Jon. You nearly had me there," Damien said as he tried to control his breathing. "You are still better than me, brother. I wonder when I will catch up with you," Jon said as he lay on the ground gasping for air. Both were exceptional fighters, the best the North had ever seen. Many claimed that they were the new coming of Arthur Dayne and Barristan Selmy, though the brothers were too modest to actually take these words to heart. "Are you done trying to hit each other? What is it with you boys and your swords?" Ashura asked as she walked towards them, smiling in an evil way at both of them. "It was all Damien's fault, mother. He dragged me here to train with him." Jon tattled on his brother as he pointed at Damien childishly, who was sweating heavily by this point. He didn't want to face his mother's wrath. The bloody wolf he may be, but he was scared shitless of his mother's anger. As Damien slowly tried to make a break for it, he was quickly caught by Ashura, who dragged him by his ear. Ashura looked at her son as he withered in agony, begging her to release him. "Ow ow ow, mother, I am sorry," Please let go of my ear. Damien begged his mother. I called for you 2 hours ago, Damien. I sent your brother after you, and here you both are. Why do you insist on continuing with your childish antics? Ashura scolded her son as he looked up at her in defiance. But John never told me that you were looking for me, mother. Damien complained. Ashura turned sharply towards John, who was sweating arrows by now. He soon followed his brother's fate. Ashura scolded them half-heartedly as they smiled impishly at her. Their smile quickly melted her anger away. You boys are never going to grow up, are you? Ashura stated, sighing heavily. Nope, we are not. Damien announced as he folded his arms in front of his chest. Speak for yourself, I am already more grown up than you. John said as he hugged his mother, kissing her cheeks. You fucking traitor. I will show you who's grown up. Damien said as he started to chase his brother around the yard. Ashura laughed fondly at the scene in front of her. She knew the kind of reputation her eldest son had, and she hated it. The monster, the slayer of Ironborn, and all that nonsense. Some even went as far as christening his son with the title Damien the Impaler for what he did to the Greyjoys. She knew her son had a good heart, and whatever he did it for the good of his people. As Damien was about to tackle John, he was interrupted by Qyburn. Apologies, my lord, I just received a message from Shadow. Damien quickly lost his playful smile as he dusted himself and started walking towards his working chambers. If Shadow had sent news, then this couldn't be a good news for him. As the years passed by since the Greyjoy rebellion, the North grew in might, popularity and population. From east to west, from north to south, everyone knew about the North and its reforms. In 8 years, the North had established a strong trading relationship with the West and the Lannisters. The North also had many strong ties with the free cities of Essos and the King's undivided trust. The North was the richest nation in the known world, with a staggering standing army of 80,000 men and a total population of 13 million people. The men, who first fought against the Greyjoys, were drafted to be the first crop of the Winter Legions. The standing army patrolled the borders of the North, and one legion was fixed to patrol and work with the Night's Watch for 6 months at a time, after which they were replaced by another legion. The North also had the naval superiority to any other nation, as it had a fleet of 1,000 ships with 700 trading vessels and 300 war galleys, and the addition of the Iron Islands to the Northern Territories only increased the North's superiority at sea. People in the North were extremely happy, as they had everything they ever dreamed of having. They had their own homes, they had employment, they had enough food to feed them and their families, enough water to bath and drink, and they had free education and free healthcare facilities. They were not taxed relentlessly and were given justice whenever they were wronged by anyone, be it a powerful man or not. They had every reason to hail their Lord Stark as the Messiah, and they did. But with the ever-increasing power, came increasing attention and envy of other lords of Westeros. Though the king and the Lannisters liked the North and supported it, every other kingdom despised the North, and none more fiercely than the Reach. The North had wrecked their economy the most with its better and cheaper trading policies and better quality products. With better silk and cotton clothes, better alcohol and better weapons, the North had slowly established itself as the trading center of Westeros. With such increase in the power, other kingdoms sent their army of spies inside the North and were pretty smug about it too. What they didn't know was that Damien had his own spy ring, and his spy ring that was far deadlier, as they were also trained killers. With the increase in might, Damien anticipated a backlash from other kingdoms, and so he started building his own spy network around the world. They were trained brutally and trained to be unquestionably loyal. Their training was so draconic that only the best of the Winter Legions ever got the honor of being a part of this order. An order that was so secretive that no one even knew its name except for Damien and his trusted advisors. The man who leads the Northern Spy Ring was known as Shadow. He was the first of their order, which was called the Unseen. Shadow was the first Unseen, and he trained the rest of the order personally. He was brutal, sadistic and ruthless, which made him very efficient at his job. The North had spies everywhere, even inside the North itself, and they were extremely good at their jobs. Nobody even knew about their existence outside of Winterfell. As Damien reached his chambers, he sat down on his chair and asked, "All right, what has Shadow informed us about this time?" "Many things, my lord. Shadow sent a coded message to us. I decrypted it for you. Here, have a look." Coburn said as he handed Damien a piece of paper. After reading it thoroughly, Damien threw the paper into his hearth, which was roaring with fire. It seems that John Arryn's wife is having an affair with that little worm Baelish. I never liked those damned Tullys. Stannis has left the capital for some reason and went back to Dragonstone. The Tyrells plan to send an assassin after me. Again and beyond the wall an army of 100,000 wildlings has united together for the very first time in the known history of our world. All clans, every single one of them has united for some reason. Damien finished speaking with a grim look on his face. It seemed that the Tyrells never learned their lesson. They sent a faceless man after him once before, but the unseen intercepted the assassin and killed him. In retaliation Damien had Mace Tyrell's wife murdered to send a message, but it seemed that a fool never learns from his mistake. But this was the least of his worries. The wildlings never came together in such great numbers, never. Something was happening north of the wall, something he didn't know. The more he thought about it, the more it became clearer that he had to do something about the wildlings once and for all. He had thought about it before, but could never find the right time to do something about it. If they were uniting together in such force, then that meant that they were running from something, but what? What could scare these tough sons of bitches into uniting together in such large numbers? The more he thought about it, the more frustrated he became. But this did present him with an opportunity for doing something that he had wanted to do for a long time. Write to Shadow and tell him to keep a sharp eye on Baelish and Lord Stannis. Tell him to kill the assassin that will be sent after me, and tell him to keep me informed about the wildlings and find out the reason why they are uniting in such force. Damien commanded as he contemplated what he was about to do. What are you going to do about the Tyrells and the wildlings, my lord? Coburn asked as he wrote down his lord's command. It seems that the Fat Flower needs another lesson. Just when he expects it the least, that will be the perfect moment for me to strike, but for now we will leave him alone. Damien said as he looked at the fire burning in his hearth. And what about the wildlings, my lord? Coburn asked. For 8,000 years we have been killing each other, and after 8,000 years we are still no close to a peaceful settlement that is agreeable by both sides. Those are our men on the other side of the wall, men with the blood of the first men in their veins. We have been fighting a war amongst ourselves for 8,000 years, and this battle will never stop until someone extends a hand of friendship towards the other party. We can only settle this animosity with peace, there is no other way. Damien declared as he stood up. What are you going to do, my lord? Coburn asked. I am going to make peace with the wildlings. After 8,000 years I will put an end to this pernicious war for all time to come. I am going to unite the Northerners and the wildlings once and for all. Damien declared with determination in his eyes. Beyond the wall, land of always winter, 298 AC. Thousands of cold blue-eyed corpses stood steady, as a man made of ice dressed in a black armor made his way towards the center of a ceremonial circle. As he reached the center, he picked up an infant lying at the center of the circle. He pressed his nail to the infant's cheek and immediately the child's eyes turned blue. As this man, with a crown made of ice, finally mounted his dead horse and retook his position, he watched impassively as thousands of people with blue eyes looked back at him. They were ready for a new hunt. Chapter 10, The Parley. And I have worked on the story plot all of yesterday, and let me thank you all for all the wonderful reviews you have left. I will continue to write this story, so don't worry about abandonment. This chapter will begin with our faithful Stark in Moat Cailin and his family. So let's begin without further ado. Moat Cailin the North, 298 AC. Get back here, you little troll. Robb Stark shouted as he chased after his most troublemaking sibling. You will never catch me alive. Arya shouted as she raced through the yards of the moat. Arya, if you don't get back here now, Mother will be very angry with you. Robb shouted as his sister took off in the direction of the stables. In her thrill of running from Robb, Arya failed to notice the man in front of her. She collided with him and fell down on her back. What's going on here, Arya? Why did you run into me? Ned Stark asked as he looked down at his daughter amusingly, who was starting to get up with a smile on her face. Robb was chasing after me because Mother told him to look for me. Arya said, still smiling as she was picked up by her father and carried around in his arms. And why are you running from your mother? Ned asked, already knowing the answer. Because she will make me do stupid things and force me to be more like Sansa. I don't want to be a lady. I don't want to sit with Septa Mordane for hours learning how to sew and sing when I have no interest in these things. I want to be a fighter, like you and Damien. Arya complained. Her mother could be a little annoying, but she loved her all the same. You can be a warrior, Arya, you can be anything you want. Your cousin made sure that every woman of the North had the freedom to choose what they want to be, just as any man. He and Jon also sent you your twin daggers, if I remember right. Ned told his daughter as he made his way towards Robb, who was looking around for his sister. Yeah, Dami and Jon are the best. They wrote to me that they will even forge a sword made of Damascus steel for me when we go to Winterfell. Arya said as excitement shone in her eyes. That's all good, Arya, but for my sake and your mother's sake too, please continue with your lessons with Septa as well. It will help you in life eventually. Ned said as he saw Robb approaching them. Thank you for catching her, father. Mother would have eaten me alive if I didn't return with her. Robb said as he took his sibling from his father's arms. Yeah, your mother has a temper. Go on then, and Arya, please behave. Ned asked his youngest daughter as she smiled at him. As Arya and Robb walked away towards the castle, Ned went straight towards the Godswood. The Weirwood Tree of Moat was not as majestic as Winterfell, but it is still a place where Ned felt at peace. As Ned closed his eyes and started to pray, he heard footsteps approaching him. Ned opened his eyes to see as Master Luwin approached him with a serious look on his face. What has happened, Luwin? Is it something bad? Ned asked with trepidation growing inside of him. No, my lord, a raven came just now bringing news from Warden of the North. Your nephew has ordered all the lords and the half of the Winter Legions to assemble at the wall within 3 weeks. He has asked you to bring Robb with you as well. Luwin informed dutifully. What could have provoked my nephew so far? This message can be interpreted as the declaration of war on the wildlings. Ned asked as he stood up and started walking towards the castle. I am afraid I don't know, my lord. Whatever Lord Stark has in mind will be revealed when you meet him at the wall. Luwin replied. Very well, call Robb and Catelyn and tell them to meet me in the Lord's chambers. Ned commanded as he watched Luwin moving away. A few moments later everyone assembled in the Lord's chamber. The mood was somber and silence prevailed in the room until Robb broke it. What has happened, father? Why have you called us here? We have been commanded by the Lord of Winterfell to assemble at the wall in 3 weeks. You will be coming with me, Robb. Ned declared. What? Why do you need to take Robb? Are you going to go fight for your nephew again? Catelyn asked frantically. I don't know what my nephew plans to do, but I will do as he commands me to do. Robb, start packing. We will move out in the evening. Luwin, leave us alone please. Ned said as he walked beside his wife. Everyone moved out of the room except Ned and Catelyn. Finally Catelyn exploded. Why do you have to take my son, Ned? Aren't you enough for whatever reason your nephew calls you? Robb is just a boy. Moreover, your nephew made it pretty clear how much he cares for Robb when he legitimized your bastard and placed him after himself in the line of succession, above Robb. He took our son's birthright away from him and now he wants him to fight his wars too. Ned remained stoic as he let his wife finish ranting. After she was done shouting he replied. We both know why he legitimized Jon and why he has altered the line of succession. Jon grew up in Winterfell with Ashera and Damien learning administration and politics. He is a fighter of unimaginable prowess and has a strong mind for politics and warfare, just like Damien. Even Robb showed no sign of resentment for Damien's decision, in fact he supports his logic. Why you are still at odds with the idea, I will never understand. He legitimized my greatest shame, he stole my son's birthright and you ask me why I am at odds with the idea. Catelyn shouted. My decision is final, Catelyn. Robb will come with me to the wall. You should let your resentment of Jon go, he is the heir to Winterfell now and it's past time you stopped hating him for something that was not his fault. Ned said as he walked out of the door leaving a fuming Catelyn alone. Ned knew his nephew's logic was sound and this also added a layer of protection around Jon should his real heritage come to light. He was excited to see his nephew again. 3 weeks later at the wall, the North, 298 AC. When Gia Mormont was told that an army of 40,000 men and all the lords of the north will be coming to the wall, he knew something big was going to happen. After his son betrayed the north by selling men into slavery and then escaping justice, Gia went to the wall to atone for his son's sin and soon became the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. Lately he had heard terrible tales from the wildlings that they captured, that all the clans were uniting under Mance Rayder to march on the wall and to run from the ancient enemy, whatever that meant. Maybe this was the reason all the lords of the north were now assembled in the great hall of Castle Black. Whatever was about to happen, it was going to be big. I have called you all here for a very specific reason. Beyond the wall an army of 100,000 wildlings has assembled for some unknown reason. Damien said as the lords started shouting in outrage. We should ride out in force and kill those fuckers. Greatjon roared. I will have peace on those terms. These craven cunts have been raiding our lands for thousands of years. It's time we kill them all, just like those damned Greyjoys. Ricard Karstark shouted as he got a huge support from the assembled lords and men of the Night's Watch. Enough. That's enough out of you all. I have called you here and told you that the wildlings amass in force and your solution is to kill them all. I thought we were better than Tywin Lannister. Those people beyond the wall also have the blood of the first men running through their veins. They are our kin and for thousands of years we have killed them and we continue to do it. This cycle of never-ending hatred will never stop unless we make peace with them, and that's what we are here to do. How many more of our own kin will we kill before we come to the sad realization that there is no winning side in this battle? Damien said as all the lords quietly stared at their warden. You expect me to make peace with those cunts? They stole from us and raided us for centuries and you want to make peace with them? I will never consent for it. Have you suddenly turned craven or are you a traitor? Greatjon roared. One more outburst out of you, Greatjon, and I will impale you where you stand. You question me and my motives. Have I not done right by you for all these years? Have I not delivered on my promise of making North the greatest power in all the known world? I say this is the only way because it is the only way. Who among us is ready to kill thousands of innocent children and women? Because if we don't do that, then they will attack us in the future eventually to avenge their dead. Who among us is ready to make war for centuries to come, with people who have the same ancestors as we do? If we don't make peace now, this war will never end and thousands will die until we finally come back to where we began, which is right here. We now have the power to make peace with the people whom we have fought for thousands of years, or we can continue fighting with them for thousands of years to come. Damien said passionately as he took his seat at the head table. Everyone looked on in silence as they contemplated what had just been said. They knew it was the right thing to do, but the years of bad blood between them and the wildlings made it difficult to accept this change. Finally Maester Aemon stood up slowly. I agree with everything that Lord Stark has just said. We are never going to stop fighting until one of us extends a hand of friendship towards the other. No better opportunity will come in the future than now. I urge you all to see reason so ridiculously obvious that even a blind man like me can see it. Maester Aemon said as he sat down again. After a few moments of silence, Lady Mormont finally got up and declared. I have always had faith in you, my lord. You changed our lives forever, and I will be damned if I don't let go of my past to look forward towards a bright future. I will stand with you. As do I, nephew. Ned declared as he and Robb smiled at Damien, who smiled back. Soon everyone followed suit except for Greatjon. He was oddly silent and at last he stood up and said. I don't know if it's the right thing to do or not, but I have undying faith in you, my lord. If you say this is the way, then I will believe you. Thank you everyone, your faith in me will not go unrewarded. We will make peace with the wildlings and we will put an end to this thousands of years of war between us. Damien declared as cheers followed his declaration. Everyone came together to decide what had to be done, and it was decided that a ranger will be sent with the terms of the parley to Mance Rayder. In a month, the ranger returned with the message that Mance Rayder was ready to meet them at the Fist of the First Men 1 month from now. He had put forth the condition that only 7 members will come to the Fist with only their swords and no other weapons, and they themselves would do the same. It was decided that Damien, Ned, Jon, Robb, Mage, Greatjon and Ricard will go to the Fist, and they set out on the following day with a ranger guiding them only until the Fist. As they reached the Fist they found 4 men and 3 women waiting for them there. They dismounted from their horse and went to meet with the wildlings. Mance Rayder, the king beyond the wall. We meet at last. Damien said as he extended his hand, which was gracefully taken by Mance. Damien the Impaler. Your reputation precedes you, Lord Stark. Why have you called for this parley, my lord, and who are your esteemed companions? Mance asked with caution. Let me introduce you to my people, Mance. This is my uncle Eddard Stark, my brothers Jon and Robb, Great Jon Umber, Mage Mormont and Ricard Karstark. Damien introduced his companions. Here are my companions, my lords. Tormund Giantsbane, Styr Magna of Thins, the Lord of Bones Rattleshirt, Val, Karsai and Dalla my wife. Now, you haven't answered my question, Lord Stark. Why are you here? Mance asked again. Word has reached the north that you amass great numbers, Mance, an army of 100,000 if my information is correct. My question is, why amass such an army? Answer my question and I will answer yours. Damien said as he looked impassively at Mance Rayder. Mance and his companions were shocked to hear that the North had already heard of them and started to panic, but kept a straight face on. We amass in such numbers because we are running, Lord Stark. We are being hunted down by someone or something that we don't know. We are running out of food and we can't raid the North with your standing army patrolling the wall and manning all the shores and the 19 castles of the Night's Watch. We are desperate, my lord, and in desperation we came together in our last effort for survival. I have answered your question, now you answer mine. Mance said fearlessly. I have come to make peace and offer you and your people a place in our lands. This war has gone on for far too long. We are kin, all of us. Blood of the first men runs through our veins. Sure, you are a little rough and immoral, but that is just the way of your life. I am not here to change that, neither am I here to conquer your kind. I ask you to come to my lands, live by my rules and call me your friend and lord and abide by my laws. You can get all the benefits of being in the North. We can help each other so much without a single loss of life. We will make peace for all the future generations to come. Damien said passionately as he watched the shocked expression of all the people assembled before him. You have been killing us for thousands of years, and suddenly you come here talking about making peace. What has changed? Why this change of heart about us? How do we know that it's not a trick? Val asked as she defiantly stared at Damien. The change is that I am the Lord of Winterfell now, my lady. I am ready to give you everything you ever dreamed of, and all you have to do in return is come under my banner, become my people and live by my laws. It's a fair trade, don't you think? Damien as he smirked at Val, who looked away slightly blushing. We do not kneel, Lord Stark. That's the way of our life. Our freedom is everything to us. Tormund said. I am not taking away your freedom, I am saying that some things are morally wrong, like rape and pillaging etc., and you don't do it in my lands. You can do as you like, be with whom you like, just stay under the laws of the nation which brings you peace and fulfillment. Presence of order doesn't mean the absence of freedom. Damien replied. And what if we refuse and attack you to conquer your lands? What then? Rattleshirt asked with a bloodthirsty look on his face. The North is the most powerful nation in the world. I have a standing army of 80,000 men and I can call on 500,000 levies to fight for me in a few weeks. We have the best and deadliest weapons in the known world. Do you really think you can fight me? Damien asked with an amused look on his face. No, we can't fight you head on. It seems we have no choice. We want to survive and you want to have peace. You swear on your honor as a Stark that you will not interfere in our way of life, if we agree to follow your rules and call you our lord. Karsai asked as she looked at Damien. I swear on my honor as a Stark of Winterfell. Will you and your people swear to follow me and my laws? Damien asked as he put his hand forward, which Karsai shook. Slowly but steadily Mance shook his hand too, along with Dalla and Tormund. When Val came forward to shake his hand, Damien caught her hand and kissed it, making her laugh and blush. We will not accept your truce, Lord Stark. My men need only me to be their leader. Styr declared as he and Rattleshirt walked away. I am beginning to fucking hate the Thins. Damien said with a deadpan voice. Everyone does, pretty boy. Val said. She pushed him slightly with her shoulder as she smirked at him and walked back to Mance, confusing him a little. He only did what his mother asked him to do when he saw a beautiful girl. Why was she pushing him around, and why did she call him a pretty boy? The northern lords and lady looked on with deadpan looks and barely contained amusement at their lord's confused face. John and Rob were not even trying to hide their amusement, laughing out loud. My navy will be at Hardham in a week. Get your people to settle there in a week. I have a fleet of 500 ships, I can transport 100,000 people at a time. We will get you all settled in the gift by the end of 6 months, where you will live till the end of your times, happily. Damien promised. My people are already at Hardham, Lord Stark. We will wait for you. Mance said as he extended his hand, which Damien shook, and then he, Dalla and Tormund walked away. He was suddenly caught by his collar by Val as she spoke in his ear. We will meet again, pretty boy. She suddenly locked lips with him, kissing him deeply for a few moments as Damien stood there with his eyes wide like a buffoon. As she smirked and went on her way, the entire northern party lost it and started laughing at the dumbfounded look on their lord's face. Everyone made fun of Damien, but as they were departing, Damien turned serious. Uncle Ned, you, John and Rob will ride towards Winterfell and assemble the fleet and meet me at Hardham in a week. I will wait at Castle Black during that duration. I have some businesses to take care of here, north of the wall. Damien said as he mounted his horse. Are you sure, nephew? These are treacherous terrains. What if something happens to you? Ned asked, worried about his nephew. Don't worry, I have to do this alone, you go ahead. Damien said as he started galloping towards the north direction. The cave, north of the wall, 298 AC. As Damien reached in front of the cave that he had seen countless times in his dreams, he slowly dismounted from his horse. He had got this feeling since he began his journey north of the wall, that something incredibly important was going on here. As he approached the cave, he was shocked beyond belief to be greeted by one of the fabled children of the forest. Come, he waits for you. The child said as she moved inside the cave, and Damien followed her. You are one of the children of the forest, aren't you? Are you the one who has given me these visions in my dreams for almost 15 years now? Damien asked as he reached the center of the cave. We came here before men, yet the first men called us children. Anyway, I am not the one giving you dreams, he is. The child said as she pointed towards a man who had a tree growing all over him. He was incredibly old, and Damien was shocked beyond belief to see him still alive. Who are you? Why have you brought me here? Why do you keep giving me these dreams? Damien asked as his hand moved towards his Valyrian steel sword. I am the Three-Eyed Raven, Damien Stark, and we meet at last. We have much to speak about, Damien the Impaler, for the game has changed with your arrival. You need to know some things. Some things that are inevitable, some things that have already happened. Will you listen to this, old man? The Three-Eyed Raven asked as he looked at Damien. When he nodded his head and relaxed a little, the Three-Eyed Raven continued. Then let's begin. Chapter 11, The Bad News. And thank you everyone for the support and reviews. I hope people will continue reading this story, though updates will be slower from now on as my exams have begun, but I will not abandon my story. Now without further ado, let's begin. Winterfell, the North, 298 AC. People in the North were in a state of perpetual harmony. They were not harassed by the city guards, and strict laws were in place that protects them from powerful people. They were economically stable and had so much food and clothes that they could last out the winter of 10 years without any problem. 6 months ago, when Lord Stark brought 300,000 wildlings with him to settle in the gift, people were a little skeptical and disoriented, since wildlings were a rowdy, lawless bunch, and Lord Stark also brought 500 giants, 2,000 mammoths, and many wargs that can shift bodies and possess animals, which created a panic in the general populace. But in 6 months everyone changed their minds. Wildlings were integrated into northern society, and they lived together with other people in peace and harmony. Sure, they were a little more rough and had little manners, but they were humans just like the rest of them, even the giants. The free folk, as they liked to call themselves, couldn't believe the opportunity that they were provided by the North, and quickly became Lord Stark's most staunchest of supporters. 200 giants even applied for the Winter Legions along with many wargs. Mammoths were put into breeding programs of the North, which had created huge amount of livestock for them, and 500 were integrated into the army. Peace and prosperity reigned supreme and North became even more powerful. The system of bank branches was introduced by the North and Iron Bank, where every city in the North had 10 branches of the Northern Iron Bank where they could put their money and receive interests on their deposits. All the people in the North started having a bank account which was safe and secure and even increased their money. They even loaned money with reasonable interest rates, and the Iron Bank and the North earned huge profits from this scheme, further improving the relationship between Bravos and the North. With the wildlings settled in the gift, and well integrated in the North's lifestyle, Damien Stark could breathe much more easily. In 14 years he had made the North whatever he ever dreamed the North of being. The North was the most powerful, richest and stable nation in the entire world. But other things occupied his mind these days. His meeting with the three-eyed raven explained many mysterious factors in his life. He now knew why he was so gifted, smart, and why the development became possible at such an unprecedented rates. The old gods were helping him, and so were the children of the forest. They made the earthquake possible. With the help of magic they had influenced his growth, but what stunned him to his core was that he was just a pace on the ground so vast that gods played with their lives. He hated the gods for what they had done and what was about to come. All his life he thought that he was his own man, but it turned out that he was just the part of someone else's plan. In that moment of realization he decided that he would separate religion from the nation administration and its laws. The gods can go fuck themselves, he would not be pawn anymore. He knew things about the past, things that would cause wars in the future. He knew about the ancient enemy, an enemy which sounded nigh undefeatable, but he could not despair. If he lost hope, then the whole North will be crushed and all that he holds dear will be gone. No, he would raise above his pre-planned destiny and he would face whatever came his way, for he refused to give up without a fight. As Damien contemplated his options sitting in front of the weirwood tree in Winterfell, he was interrupted by his mother. "You look so somber, my boy, is something the matter? Ever since you returned from north of the wall you have been like this. Tell me so I can help you." Ashura said as she tried to lighten her son's burden. "I left 100,000 free folk behind, mother. I went there to make peace, but I couldn't make peace with all of them. I failed, and it's haunting me knowing what's coming for them if they don't make peace with us," Damien said in a voice full of melancholy. "What do you mean, my boy? What is coming to get them?" Ashura asked, frightened by the despair her boy showed. "Something that has not been around for thousands of years, something that I am terrified of, and yet I am the only one who can face it. How to be brave when death marches towards you every day? When you are so sacred at the mere prospect of these creatures, how does one face them?" Damien asked his mother as her mother suddenly hugged him tightly. "You are not going to die, you hear me? I won't allow it. I don't know what you are talking about and I don't know what is going on here, but I know that it's okay to scared. It is the only time a person can be brave, my baby boy. You didn't fail the free folk, you made peace with them after 8,000 years and I am so proud of you for it. Everyone will come around, just give them time. If you lose hope, then what about your people? What about your brother and what about me?" Ashura asked as she hugged her son tightly. "Jon is not my brother, he is not even an illegitimate son of Uncle Ned," Damien said as he was suddenly pushed away from his mother's warm embrace, who looked in pure fury at his eldest son. "How dare you say that? Jon is my little boy, he is your successor. How can you say something like that?" Ashura asked her son accusingly. "It's okay, mother, I understand. I am a bastard and I acknowledge it, but I am curious, Damien. Why this sudden change of heart? Is this how you always felt? If so, then why give this bastard false hope?" Jon asked sadly as he walked out of his hiding spot behind the weirwood tree where he came to look after his brother. Before Damien could answer, Ashura stood up and marched towards Jon, slapping him across his face, shocking both him and Damien. "How dare you, both of you? You are my son. I may not have given birth to you, but I nursed you at my own teats, I raised you as my own son. How dare you say that you are a bastard?" Ashura shouted at her sons as she started weeping, watching her family being torn apart by her eldest son. Jon silently hugged his mother and kissed her cheeks, apologizing repeatedly. Before this could escalate any further, Damien decided to intervene. "You both misunderstand me, I meant that Jon is not just my little brother, he is also my king," Damien said as he hugged his family warmly. "What do you mean? How can he be your king? Our king is Robert Baratheon, Ashura said, pushing Damien away. What I mean is that Jon is not Uncle Ned's son, but he is the son of Crown Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and my aunt Lyanna Stark. He is the heir to the Iron Throne, Damien said as he watched his mother and brother gasp in surprise. Jon's entire life turned upside down. It was not a lie, he could see that clearly in Damien's eyes. He was the Prince of the Seven Kingdoms. He was the grandson of the Mad King. He finally knew who he really was, and although he loved his mother who raised him immensely, he now knew who his birth mother was. As he started to hyperventilate, he was suddenly hugged strongly by his brother and mother, which made him calm down. No, he is not a Targaryen. He is a Stark. He is my son, and I will be damned if I let anything happen to him or let anyone say otherwise. He is my baby boy, my favorite son, Ashura said stubbornly while weeping and hugging Jon tightly, making Jon and Damien both smile. What am I, chopped liver? Damien asked playfully, getting a chuckle out of Jon and a glare from his mother. How did you come to know this? Did I mean Uncle Ned tell you this when we went beyond the wall? Jon asked as he consoled his distraught mother, who was clinging to him as if he was going to disappear. I can't tell you where I know it from, but I have acquired proof of this. High Septon Maynard annulled Elia and Rhaegar's marriage and married him to your mother. He recorded this in his diary, which was acquired from the citadels by my contacts. Your name is not Jon, it's Aegon Targaryen, Damien said, getting a sad look from Jon and a nasty glare from Ashura, which made Damien starting to sweat. This will stay between us for now. We all know what Robert will do to you if he ever finds out. I have to ask though. Do you want to make a claim? Damien asked Jon, and even Ashura looked up at him, waiting for an answer. No, I don't. I am Jon Stark of Winterfell, and I will live out my life like this. I am the son of Ashura Stark and brother of Damien Stark. Nothing more, nothing less, Jon declared, bringing tears to his mother's eyes, who started bawling again, hugging Jon with all her might and a smile to Damien's face. Very well, but I told about this to Maester Aemon, and he had a few gifts for you. Gifts that will be very necessary for the wars to come, Damien said as he started walking towards the castle. What gifts and what wars to come? What are you saying, brother? Jon asked as he and Ashura followed Damien. I will tell you in time, trust me. As for your gifts, well, here they are, Damien said as he walked into his room and took out a chest from his secret compartment. As Jon opened the chest, he was astounded to find 2 dragon eggs and a Valyrian steel sword lying in the trunk. The legacy of House Targaryen, Dark Sister, and the last 2 dragon eggs. They were given by Bloodraven to Master Aemon, who kept it safe all these years. He wanted you to have it, and he even wrote you a letter, Damien said as he gave Jon a letter. Jon pocketed the letter, deciding to read it later. He picked up the eggs and found them to be warm. Gently he kept them down, and picking up the razor-sharp sword, which felt like it was made for him, he swung it around and sheathed it. We have to hatch those eggs tonight. I know what you are thinking, Jon, but you have to do it. The safety of the world and the North depends upon it. I can't tell you why, but I need you to trust me, Damien said with so much conviction in his eyes that Jon had to concede. Ashura watched as Damien hugged Jon and told him that he would raise the dragon in secret and with full freedom, that he would not compromise Jon's safety. She was happy that her sons loved each other so much. She still selfishly wanted her youngest son to be only hers, but she knew that it was not reasonable and watched on with a smile as the brothers hugged each other. Their moment of family bonding was rudely interrupted by Qyburn, who rushed into Damien's room with a piece of paper. He was panting as if he had been running the whole way. What has happened, Qyburn? What's going on? Damien asked as he started to get worried. Qyburn replied as he calmed his breath. A raven from the capital, my lord. The hand of the king, Jon Arryn, is dead. The king rides towards Moat Cailin. He means to name your uncle as the next hand of the king. Chapter 12, The Arrival of the King. And thank you guys for such awesome reviews and tremendous support. I love you all, and I will keep writing for you. I would like to clarify that my story is a bit fast-paced, and that's how I intend it to be. Fast pace will allow me to cover a great amount of development in the plot of the story, and I will rewrite it after it is finished eventually. Now without further ado, let the games begin. Moat Cailin, the North, 298 AC. For the love of God, Arya, will you shut up? Sansa told her sister as she continued to sew the dress she was designing to impress the queen. Her little sister had been out of control when a week earlier 2 ravens came, informing the Starks of Moat of the arrival of the king in a month and the arrival of Damian in a week. Shut up, you stupid. I am so excited that Damian and Jon are coming today. I will finally get to learn the way of the sword and so much more. Arya exclaimed as she continued her rant about her cousins whom she loved more than anything. Why are you so excited anyway? Mother told us that Damian is a brute and a monster who stole Robb's birthright from him and Jon is just a bastard. Sansa said as she looked up at her sister. She was surprised when she saw Arya trying to lunge at her throat like a wild wolf only to be held back by Septa Mordane. How dare you and Mother say that? They are the most amazing men in the north. Jon is not a bastard, he is a Stark. How can you say something like that about your own family? Arya shouted as she kept trying to get out of Septa's hold. What is going on here? Robb Stark asked as he barged into the room when he heard Arya shouting. Arya is acting like a wild beast again. She tried to attack Sansa after Sansa said some demeaning things about our warden and your cousin. Septa Mordane said as she let go of Arya as she was held back by Robb now. I will straighten this matter for them, and the next time you call my sister a beast will be the last day you live in this castle. Arya and Sansa, you will follow me to father's chambers. Robb said powerfully as he turned to walk away with Arya, and Sansa soon started to follow him with a guilty look on her face. As Robb silently escorted his siblings to father's chambers, he thought about having a word with his mother. He had heard what Sansa had said and he didn't like it one bit. Damian and Jon were his brothers in all but blood and he supported Damian's decision to make Jon as his heir. He knew that he was an excellent student of battle tactics and a very good swordsman, but he hated politics, whereas Jon was a legendary swordsman in the making, an excellent battle tactician and a terrific politician. Jon was still inferior to Damian in all aspects, but he was leagues above Robb and hence Robb supported Damian's decision. As the siblings reached their father's chambers, he knocked on the door and was greeted by both Firemother and father as they opened the door. What has happened? What has Arya done now? Catelyn asked of her eldest, getting a scowl from him in return. Arya didn't do anything, it was Sansa this time and all she did was what you have taught her mother. Robb told his mother crossly. Robb, rein in your tone. You are talking to your mother. What has happened? Ned Stark asked as he scolded his son for the lack of respect he showed towards his mother. As Robb told them what had transpired, Catelyn started to turn more uncomfortable while Ned turned more furious with every word that was uttered. Ned soon reprimanded his daughters and son and punished them by asking them to clean the stables for a week, making them all cringe in distaste. Ned dismissed the children after explaining to them the importance of family and respect. As soon as the children were gone, he rounded on an uncomfortable Catelyn with a furious look on his face. What is the meaning of this, cat? I have told you countless times that don't say such things in front of the kids. What is wrong with you? Damian is our lord and you disrespect him in such a manner. Ned shouted with fury in his eyes. That boy is no lord of mine. He stole my son's birthright and that legitimized that bastard of yours. He has wronged me so much and even you know the atrocities he has committed over the years. Whatever I said was true and you know it, Ned. Catelyn said furiously. I have explained you 1,000 times and so has Robb. We understand and support Damian and his decision, but you seem to continue to harbor these traitorous thoughts. I love you and I love my family, but understand this, Catelyn, that if you don't stop spreading these poisonous thoughts to our children, then I will send you back to Riverrun. Ned said with a cold voice devoid of any emotion. You would abandon me for your nephew. Do I mean so little to you? Catelyn asked as she tried to overcome her shock about what Ned had just said. I would do it for everyone. What you are doing right now is immoral and it will hurt the Stark family in the long run. Ned said as he tried to make his wife see reason. They were suddenly interrupted by a servant who informed them that the Lord of Winterfell and his caravan were almost at the gates. Ned and Catelyn started to prepare for the arrival of the Warden of the North. As the entire Stark family of Moat Cailin came into the yard to welcome Damien and Jon, they were great by the sight of the Winterfell party, which comprised of 300 soldiers and a carriage which was led by two menacing figures in full-plated armor with silver direwolves engraved on the chestplate and snarling direwolf helmets. As the carriage stopped in front of the Stark family, Arya and Bran started bouncing in excitement while Robb and Ned started to grin. As the two menacing figures slowly dismounted from their horses, they one by one removed their helmets. The first one had dark brown hair with a long face, slim but muscular body and grey summer eyes. He was easily 5'10" and had a smile on his face which made him look extremely charismatic and handsome. But his good looks were still nothing compared to the second rider, who made the ladies swoon in their place as he removed his helmet. The second rider had coal-black hair with haunting amethyst eyes and a very muscular build. He was easily 6'2" and had incredibly aristocratic features. He had a devilish grin on his face which made him even more handsome to look at. Both these figures, now identified as Jon and Damien, opened the carriage doors, escorting the stunning Ashera Dayne out with all their grandeur befitting a queen. She slowly walked towards Ned and his family with her sons flanking her like bodyguards. She smiled beautifully as she greeted Ned. "Moat Cailin is yours, my lady," Ned said as he bowed and kissed Ashera's hand. "Why does everyone ignore me? I am the Lord of Winterfell, damn it. Pay attention to your warden too, Uncle Ned," Damien demanded childishly, making all the children present there giggle. "Silence, Damien. Curb your antics for once if you could," Ashera said as she scolded Damien, making the children laugh at the frightened face that Damien made. As Damien prepared his retort, his and Jon's legs were attacked by an overexcited Arya and Bran respectively, making both of them laugh out loud and picking both children up and twirling them around. "It's good to see you, my favorite cousins. Now where are the rest of our cousins?" Damien asked as he tickled Arya, who was trying to fight his grip. He watched as Catelyn came forward with Sansa and Rickon with reserved look in her eyes. He slowly placed Arya down and bowed to kiss Catelyn and Sansa's hands, making the latter blush. "It's wonderful to see you, Lady Catelyn and Lady Sansa," Damien said as he smiled at his family. He rubbed Rickon's head, making him laugh, and started making funny faces at the young boy, making him laugh. After the exchange of greetings out of the way, the entire Stark family entered the castle. Damien and his family were shown their rooms, and children quickly started hogging Damien, Jon and Ashera. As days went by, awaiting the arrival of the king, the people of Moat Cailin fell into a pattern. Arya, Bran and Robb stayed and practiced warfare with Damien and Jon, while Sansa and Shy Rickon took a special shining towards Ashera, who was a motherly but stern figure who taught Sansa the art of womanly conduct and basics of politics. As her children thrived, Catelyn grew insanely jealous. Her children were ignoring her, especially Robb and Arya. She was even ignored by Sansa nowadays, who was being taught by Ashera. Only Rickon remained with her, and this made Catelyn sad. Did no one understood her plight? Was she truly selfish to want the best for her children? Whatever her objections, she kept it to herself. She could not risk incurring Ned's wrath again. 4 weeks passed by and everyone was as happy as they could have ever been. Arya got her saber blade made of Damascus steel, which she named Needle. Bran got a short sword and intense training, while Sansa thrived immensely under Ashera's tutelage. Arya joined Sansa too, as they both learned womanly manipulations and politics which would help them immensely in the future. Bran, Arya and Robb were given battle training by Damien and Jon every day. Ned and Damien even found 7 direwolf pups one day when they went for a hunt. Their mother died birthing them, and Damien took it as a sign of coming winter and decided to raise these pups besides his sibling cousins. Each Stark child was presented with a direwolf pup, and they immediately took a shinning to it. The most striking pups were Damien and Jon's, as they had black and white fur respectively with red eyes, though Damien's direwolf did have highlights of blue in his fur. Damien named his direwolf companion Venom, and Jon named his direwolf Ghost. Robb, Sansa, Arya, Bran and Rickon named their direwolf as Greywind, Lady, Nymeria, Summer and Shaggydoge respectively. One day when Bran was climbing the battlements of Moat Cailin, he saw the royal party approaching. Everyone was summoned in the yard, with Damien leading the northern group as their symbolic leader. As the king's horse approached, they saw the king was accompanied by his kingsguard, and they were followed by a carriage. Watching the king, all of the northern party began to kneel. Damien prayed to all gods that Jon would control his anger in front of Robert, now that he knew the truth of his birth. As Robert dismounted from his horse he strode to the kneeling Northerners. He silently signaled Damien and Ned to stand. "You have got fat," Robert said as he looked at Ned. Ned just pointed at Robert's belly with nonchalance and immediately both of them started laughing. 8 years. Why haven't I seen you? Where the fuck have you been?" Robert asked as he hugged Ned. "Guarding the entrance of the north for my nephew, your grace." "The north is yours," Ned said as he bowed to his king. "Enough with the bloody pomp, now whom have we here?" My joy, it's been 8 years. You look like the Prince Charming of the wet dreams of every woman out there." Robert poked fun as he embraced Damien, who hugged him back. "Indeed, your grace, it's been too long." "I welcome you into the north, your grace," Damien said. As Robert greeted every Stark family member, Damien noticed Queen Cersei, who looked regal. As she stood in front of him, he quickly took her hand and kissed it. "Welcome to the north, my queen," Damien said with a smile which was reciprocated by Cersei. "Ned, follow me, I have to speak with you," Robert demanded as he started to walk away, closely followed by Ned. As they both walked towards the weirwood tree they talked about Jon Arryn, reminiscing their childhood. As they reached the tree, Robert sprung the question. "Ned, I need you down at King's Landing. Your nephew has changed the north and you are not needed here anymore, but I do need you. That snake pit of a capital eats at your soul and I have only one friend that can help me there. Will you help me? Will you be my hand?" Robert asked. As Ned was about to answer they were interrupted by Damien. "Before you answer that, uncle, I have to tell you both something," Damien said as he walked towards them. "What are you doing here, Damien? And what do you want to tell us?" Robert asked. Damien spoke with no emotions in his voice as he answered. "I followed you in hopes to tell you the truth. I know who killed Jon Arryn. Chapter 13, The Fall. Author's note: thank you guys for all the tremendous support and love you have given to my story. I apologize for not being able to update my story more often as I have my exams right now. Some personal views though, I am thoroughly disappointed with the present season of Game of Thrones. I will try to update as soon as possible, but for now bear with the short chapters. Now without further ado, let's begin. Moat Cailin, the North, 298 AC. That little bitch of a prince is a piece of shit, Jon exclaimed as he sat beside Damien as they sat in the great hall enjoying the feast thrown in honor of the king. "Silence yourself, brother, he is still the prince of the Seven Kingdoms," Damien reprimanded his brother in a quiet voice. "Jon is not wrong though, the prince sure is a cunt," Robb threw in his own exclamation. "Agreed, he blamed his defeat with Jon and Dany on faulty swords, what a twat," Arya said snidely as she glared at Joffrey, who was trying to woo her elder sister at the moment. "What are you doing here anyways, Arya? Shouldn't you be with Aunt Caitlin and my mother right now?" Damien asked as he continued to eat nonchalantly. "I ditched them, I wanted to be with you people." "Tell us, what do you think of the Prince Dany?" Arya asked as she stole a bacon strip from Robb's plate as he wasn't paying attention. "I think the prince is a bit childish, but I think he will grow up soon. It is not unnatural to have royalty acting a little spoilt. Though I have heard rumors, things that don't speak in favor of our beloved prince," Damien stated quietly as he looked over to the king and the queen, who were eating in a somber mood. He knew why the king was quiet. He would have been the same way had he found out that someone had purposely killed his uncle Ned and then tried to profit from it. He would be on a killing spree right now. The king was much more tame than he had thought he would be. "I like the princess and the younger prince though. Can't believe they are related to that prick Joffrey," Jon said as he smiled at Myrcella, who looked away with a huge blush on her face. "Planning to seduce the princess, are we?" "She is a child, you monster," Robb ribbed Jon, who got his head in a headlock in retaliation. "I am thinking nothing of this sort, you bitch," Jon said in a raised voice which attracted the attention everyone in the hall, especially of Ned and the king, who started smirking by seeing the scene in front of them. Damien and Arya were laughing so hard that they were about to pass out. Damien stopped laughing and started sweating as soon as he saw Ashera and Caitlin glaring a hole in his head, and immediately broke the brothers apart, who were acting like a bunch of wild wolves. "Enough," You both will apologize to each other right now. This is no way for Starks to behave, especially in front of the king. Damien commanded his brothers in a strong voice, who immediately obeyed his commands. Ha ha ha, it's all right, my boy. It reminds me of your uncle and me when we were being fostered in the Vale. Robert said while laughing, although he soon turned somber remembering what Damien had told him about Jon Arryn and started to get angry. Perhaps we should end this feast, your grace. You have had a long journey, you must rest now. Ned said as he noted his best friend's temper beginning to rise. Yes, you are right. This feast is over. I would like to thank the generosity of Ned and his family for hosting us in such grandeur. Ned and Damien, follow me. Robert said as he moved out of the great hall, closely followed by Ned and Damien. After they went outside, Ned and Damien stood silently as the king looked at them with pure fury in his eyes. Are you certain it was him? Beyond a shadow of doubt it was him. Robert asked with poorly veiled anger in his voice. Yes, your grace. It was Lysa Arryn who poisoned Jon Arryn, on the words of Peter Baelish. He has some motivation behind this, I am sure. What that is though, I have no idea. Damien said. That fucking worm, I give him a respected position on my council and this is how he repays me. I will kill that fucking worm and that bitch and mount their heads on a spike at the city gates. Robert exclaimed with all of his fury in his voice. That would not be wise, Robert. Tullys and the entire Vale will rise up in defense of Lysa as soon as they know of your intentions. Ned explained as he tried to calm his friend. Fuck them, I will fucking go to war with Vale and the Riverlands. I don't care what everyone thinks, Jon was like my father. Robert yelled furiously. I would advise to exercise caution, your grace. I have a plan, ready to deal with them both. My people in the capital have already acquired some damning evidence of their crimes, and if we play this the right way, we will be able to punish them without losing the Vale. Damien said as he lowered his voice and stepped closer to the king and Ned. What is your plan? Will we be able to convict them in a trial? Robert asked Damien. Yes, but we will not proceed with a trial, not just yet. We have to coax out every bit of information Littlefinger has, and to do that, it is imperative that he is caught alive. We have to keep this a secret, as closely kept as it could be. Here is my plan. Damien explained his plan to the king and Ned, and by the end of the plan they were convinced that this was some serious deception, but the best plan to keep the realms in peace. Maybe I should name you the Hand of the King, you have a better mind for politics than any of my counselors. Robert said as he seriously considered this option. And while I am honored, your grace, I would have to respectfully refuse. The North needs me right now, maybe in the future I could serve you as your hand. For now, you have to make do with my uncle. Damien replied politely as he bowed his head in respect for the king's offer. As they all dispensed with their meeting, they all proceeded to go to their chambers and contemplate on the plan they had concocted. As the days passed by, Damien and Jon surprisingly formed a deep friendship with Tyrion and Jaime Lannister. They would often trade barbs and cross swords. Damien impressed both the Lannister brothers as he was evenly matched, if not slightly better than Jaime in swordsmanship, and very intelligent, which earned him the respect of Tyrion. Everyone fell into routine once again as Robb, Damien, Jon and surprisingly Arya spent most of their time with Jaime, Tyrion, Myrcella and Tommen. Sansa spent most of her time avoiding Joffrey and learning all she could from Ashera, and observed Cersei to learn her poise and composure. Sansa realized that Joffrey was not right in the head and she wanted to stay as far away from him as possible. Catelyn was starting to come around Jon and Ashera and started spending time with Ashera, trying to mend their relationship. Bran and Tommen were trained regularly by Damien, and Rickon was spoiled rotten by Ashera. Everything was going perfectly for the Starks. Damien was sitting in his chambers thinking about the trade alliance he had with the Lannisters, which made him as well as them incredibly rich. So much so that Lannister army was now 150,000 strong and modelled after Damien's own army. As Damien started to get up to leave for his training with Jaime, he was interrupted by Robb, who burst into his room with tears in his eyes. What happened? Why are you crying? What is wrong, Robb? Damien asked in an urgent voice. Robb calmed himself and replied, Bran has fallen while climbing one of the towers of Moat. Master Lewin is not sure if he would ever gain consciousness. Chapter 14, The Wolf and the Lion. Moat Cailin the North, 298 AC. How could this have happened? How? He was so sure-footed, how could he have fallen? Jon ranted as he paced outside Bran's room. Mother and Aunt Ashura are devastated. Mother has not left Bran's side since the fall. I am worried about her. Robb said in an equally worried fashion. A Stark will have a fall, for he has to rise in my stead to complete the prophecy. He will never walk but he will fly and thus fulfill the destiny of a raven with 3 eyes. Damien spoke silently as he stood facing the other way from the rest of the Stark children. What do you mean by that, Dami? What prophecy? What raven? Arya asked Damien as she tugged on his trousers to get his attention. Nothing, my love, just the words of an old man in a tree, half a world away in a cave. Damien replied in a somber tone as he scooped up Arya and started rocking her to console her as she put her face in the crook of his neck, hiding her tears from the world. I will have a pair of my best guards on Bran and your mother. Jon will stand here to guard them too. Go and get some rest, cousins. It's been a long day. Damien said as he gently put Arya down. As soon as the Stark children, bar Jon and Damien, departed, the somber mood of the head of the Stark house turned into absolute fury. Damien started punching the walls with his bare hands as he ranted his apoplectic rage on the walls. As Jon subdued his brother, who had blooded his hands on the walls, he slowly made Damien sit down against the very wall he was punching and sat beside him. Are you out of your mind? Why this much anger? You have blooded your hands and the walls. What has happened, Damien? Why are you so mad? Jon asked his brother as he tried to calm him down. I knew this was going to happen, I knew because I was foretold. I knew and I could do nothing, I could do absolutely nothing but to watch my own cousin in such a broken state. Makes me wonder, what more I know that I can't change in the end. Damien replied as he calmed himself. How could you have known this? That's impossible. Jon asked in a surprise at his brother's statement. What I am about to tell you stays between us, only the two of us. Swear it by the old gods and on the honor of Stark family that what I am about to tell you will stay between us. Damien asked his brother. I swear. Jon replied. Damien told Jon everything, about the threat beyond the wall, about the prophecy of the 3-eyed raven. He told him everything, and with every passing moment Jon turned more and more horrified. This cannot be true. Tell me this isn't true, brother. Is this why you wanted to hatch the dragon eggs so urgently, before King Robert's arrival was announced? You are telling me that dead are marching on the wall? Jon asked with incredulity written on his face. Yes. That is what I am telling you. We have to prepare, Jon. Death is marching for us all. We have to be ready for the dead men. Damien replied as he looked at his brother's devastated face. As Jon calmed himself, he hugged Damien tightly and replied, I will stand with you till the end, brother, we will face the dead together. You will not face them alone. Fuck the prophecy, we will disprove it. You will not be alone. Damien smiled as he hugged his brother back with all his might. As Damien departed and Jon stood to guard Bran and Catelyn. The night went on with the castle sleeping in depression, and the next day people prepared for the king's departure. As the king and his caravan stood in the yard of Moat Cailin, ready to depart, Damien walked up to his uncle Ned and hugged him tightly. Go and help the king, uncle. Remember our plan. You are not alone in the capital, I have 500 trained unit in King's Landing, all loyal to me. The leader of the Unseen's capital division will contact you. Get in touch with him if anything goes wrong at all. He will help you in every way he can. Damien said as he hugged his uncle tightly. Yes, my lord. Ned replied as he smiled at his nephew's concern. Soon Ned was greeted by Robb and Jon, who exchanged their greetings, and Damien hugged Arya and Sansa, who were inconsolable at the thought of leaving their brothers. Damien, Jon and Robb calmed them down and they came around. Soon the king's caravan departed with Ned, Arya, Sansa and 400 northern soldiers in tow. As everyone watched the Stark family leave, no one noticed a person sneaking around stables. Damien went back to prepare his own leave for Winterfell. Tyrion and the rest of the Stark family were coming with them, as he had decided that he would have Bran treated by the best of scholars of Winterfell. Tyrion Lannisters was a conundrum he could not understand. Damien liked that man and he was intelligent beyond belief, but Tyrion was not happy. Something haunted him and his eyes which Damien couldn't figure out. He wanted to see Winterfell and the Wall, and Damien wholeheartedly agreed to send an escort with him in light of his friendship with the dwarf of Casterly Rock. The whole day passed with everyone visiting Bran from time to time. Damien, Ashura, Jon and Robb tried everything they could to convince Catelyn to take rest, but she refused to budge. She was beside herself with grief, and the departure of her husband and her daughters made her completely inconsolable. Rickon stuck with Ashura, who took care of him, and Jon and 3 other guards would guard Bran at all times alongside 3 direwolves, namely, Ghost, Summer and Midnight approached. Robb alongside Greywind once again tried to convince his mother of taking appropriate rest. "Please mother, take some rest. Rickon is asking for you, everyone is worried for you. For the love of all the gods, please rest." Master Lewin said that the danger has passed, and with proper medicines from Winterfell, Bran will recover within days. Robb tried to reason with his mother, who was praying as she sat beside her comatose son. "Bran needs me, leave me Robb, please. My son needs me. I have to pray for him. How will I ever manage if anything happens to him at all? Lewin is not God, he can be wrong. I have to say with my son. Away with you, damn you." Catelyn shouted at her eldest with all her grief. Before Robb could rebut, he was distracted by a raging fire near the Moat Cailin stables. He quickly rushed out with Greywind, Jon and the rest of the guards to quell the fire. As Catelyn stood to look at what had happened at the stables, she didn't realize someone had sneaked into the room. She was made aware of his presence as all the remaining 3 direwolves started growling. She turned to face the intruder, who looked like a commoner with a dagger in his hand. "You are not supposed to be here. No one is supposed to be here. It's a mercy, the boy is dead already," the man proclaimed as he moved to kill Bran. The man was immediately set upon by the 3 wolves as they tore his throat out before Catelyn could intervene. She stood there dumbfounded as she looked at the blood seeping from her son's would-be killer and breathed a gigantic breath of relief as she collapsed on the floor with fatigue. Soon after, Jon, Damien, Ashura, Robb and the 2 guards came rushing into her room, with Damien looking at the body of the man with utter fury. Damien immediately petted the direwolves and helped Catelyn sit up. As soon as he stood up, he rounded on Jon and slapped him so hard that he fell down on the ground. "How dare you leave your post? I gave you a command and you disobey me," Damien asked furiously, who was immediately stopped by Ashura as she came between her raging son as she tried to calm his anger. "Robb told me about the stable fire, I just wanted to help," Jon replied as he reoriented himself and looked at Damien in guilt. "Robb could have quelled the fire on his own. Next time you decide to go off like that, think about the outcome beforehand. Aunt Catelyn and Bran could have died tonight. Had it not been for the direwolves. I have half a mind to whip you through the streets." Damien yelled at his younger brother in fury. "Enough, Damien, Jon made a mistake and he is sorry for it. And the next time you strike your brother, you will answer to me, young man, is that understood?" Ashura asked as she hugged a guilty-looking Jon and tried to console him. "But mother," Damien tried to retort but was immediately silenced by his mother's glare. "Is that understood?" Ashura asked again, to emphasize her point. She may have given birth to Damien, but Jon had always been her favorite son. She could never bear the thought of her children coming to blows. "Yes mother, I am sorry Jon," Damien said as his anger was subdued. "It's all right brother, I am sorry too. I will not repeat this carelessness," Jon replied as he tried to calm his mother, who was looking increasingly worried at the bruise that was forming on his cheek. Damien started looking around the cutthroat's body and examined the dagger. It was Valyrian steel. It had to be someone rich, who paid of the cutthroat. As the dead body was cleaned, Damien started to connect the dots. A sure-footed boy falls from a tower and then someone rich tries to assassinate him. This could not be a mere coincidence, the cosmos was hardly ever so lazy. He moved out, with proper guard detail around Bran, to examine the tower from where Bran fell. He examined the top room from where Bran could have fallen and couldn't find anything. As he was about to leave, something caught his eye. A single strand of blonde hair, a very long single strand of blonde hair. Damien knew who it was who pushed Bran. Jaime and Tyrion were with Jon at the moment of the incidents. Joffrey was with Sansa and Myrcella, and Tommen were with Rickon, Arya and Robb. That left only 2 Lannisters in the picture. Lancel was pussy who couldn't hurt a fly, let alone a 10-year-old boy. This left only one suspect in Damien's mind. Cersei Lannister. En route to King's Landing, at the same moment, everyone was looking for the younger Stark girl and her wolf, as they had apparently assaulted the prince. Joffrey had said that Arya and her wolf attacked him, but Sansa and the 2 Winter Guards who were with them said that Joffrey first antagonized the butcher's boy and then he tried to kill Arya. As soon as Arya was found, the Winter Guards formed a protective sphere around her so that she was only visible to the king and his family. Ned Stark entered the king's tent in apoplectic rage and felt at ease when he saw his daughter surrounded by Winter Guards. He immediately broke through them all to get to his daughter. He hugged Arya as he saw her and rounded on the king with fury in his eyes. "What is the meaning of this? Why wasn't my daughter brought to me at once?" Ned demanded. "How dare you talk to your king in this manner?" Cersei said, but was interrupted by Robert. "Quiet, woman. Sorry about all of this, Ned, but your daughter has assaulted my son. We are here to know the whole truth. I have heard from Joffrey, Sansa and the 2 Winter Guards who were with you, but I would also like to hear it all from you." Robert asked Arya in a kind voice. Arya told him everything, which matched exactly with what the guards and Sansa had said, and hence the king was compelled to believe Arya's side. He reprimanded Joffrey, calling him a coward, and was done with this hearing, but the queen was not satisfied. She wanted the wolf who assaulted her son dead, but since that direwolf, Nymeria, was nowhere to be found, she demanded the death of the second wolf, Lady. After much futile convincing, it fell upon Ned Stark to kill Lady. As Ned knelt before Lady to deliver the killing blow, he remembered his son and Lyanna and finally plunged the dagger in Lady's heart, and at the same moment, Bran Stark opened his eyes. Chapter 15, Into the Capital. Chapter 15. The Capital. King's Landing, the Crown Lands, 298 AC. If one thing Eddard Stark was sure of, it was that the capital of their continent was one of the most repugnant cities he had ever seen. When Robert took the crown, Eddard was convinced that the tyranny of the Mad King and crimes of Tywin Lannister will be rectified, but it seems that Robert had been a vain king with no regard for this decadent city. It broke Eddard's heart to see how far his friend has fallen and how badly this city and its people needed help. This city desperately needed someone like his nephew, and Eddard was determined to ask his nephew for advice on how to turn this dying city into a thriving one. The city was the least of Eddard's worries, as he already knew what he had to face in the capital. His act of slaughtering the direwolf Lady also didn't sit well with his daughters, as both of them had presented a united front in ignoring him and glaring at him with all of their anger. Eddard knew what he had done and what he was about to do. He knew he put his daughters in grave risk in bringing them to the capital, but he had assurance. His nephew was a shrewd and cunning man, and he knew that as long as Damien was alive, he and his daughters would not have to fear for their lives in the capital. This cesspool of snakes and backstabbers that people called King's Landing was infested with rats, and one of the deadly ones had made his way into the King's Council. It was imperative that Littlefinger be rooted out, but he had to be careful with his plan. After all, his nephew always said that he who controls the king's purse controlled the king's kingdom. As the Northern Party rode into King's Landing, the people of the city looked on in wonder at Eddard Stark, the new hand of the king. People all across the continent had heard of the reforms in the north, and with Eddard's arrival the people of King's Landing were finally beginning to see a ray of hope in this dark, decrepit city. Soon a few voices rose, and then thousands joined them as Eddard's horse rode him deeper towards the Red Keep, the king's palace. Men and women alike shouting for their new lord hand and welcoming him into the city, as he was perhaps the last hope these people had. Eddard and his daughters had never been more overwhelmed. They had been worshipped in the north, and there was a reason for it, but this was unprecedented. These people never even knew Eddard and his family, yet they were welcoming him as the savior himself had arrived on a horseback. Eddard was now more determined than ever to be the symbol of hope for this city and its people. As the party reached the Red Keep, Eddard and his daughters dismounted their horses and were greeted by a member of the court. "Welcome to King's Landing, my Lord Hand. Grand Maester Pycelle has called for a meeting of the small council. Your presence is requested," the messenger said. Eddard steeled himself for work and asked Jory to escort his daughters and their party to the Tower of the Hand. As he walked in towards the council, he entered the throne room and saw Jaime Lannister seated at the foot of the throne. Thank God you are here, Lord Stark. It's about time we too had some revolutionary and stern northern leadership. Jaime said. I am glad to watch you are guarding the throne, Sir Jaime. I wanted to say something to you and to ask you something. Eddard said in a grave tone. I am more than happy to assist the Lord Hand in my capacity. What would you ask of me? Jaime asked in curiosity. First I wanted to say that I had erred all those years ago when I came to this very room after the sacking of King's Landing and judged you without listening to your side of the story. Eddard said. Jaime was standing there with his head held high but was in complete and utter shock as this was the last thing he expected. He was still furious that Eddard had judged him without ever listening to him and resented the name Kingslayer, but this was huge. He was so shocked that he forgot to say anything in rebuttal. After living with his nephew for so many years and watching him grow into one of the strongest leaders this continent had ever seen, Eddard realized that he had been remiss in judging Jaime purely on the principle of honor and never even giving him a chance to defend himself. He was man enough to apologize for when he had erred and he had done just that. I apologize, Sir Jaime, as I had not been fair to you and I would like to correct my mistake. I wanted to ask if you would join me for a drink this evening in the Tower of the Hand. Eddard asked with trepidation, expecting to be rejected. Jaime got over his shock and smiled at Eddard, as he said, I cannot say I outright forgive you Lord Stark, but I do know that you are sincere in your apology and that's a beginning. I would love to meet with you this evening, my Lord Hand. Thank you, Sir Jaime. Now if you will excuse me, I have a small council meeting to attend. Farewell Sir Jaime. Eddard said as he walked by Jaime towards the small council chambers. And to you Lord Stark, farewell. Jaime said in a quiet voice as he was still shocked by the events that had happened between him and Eddard. As Eddard entered the small council chamber he was greeted by every member of the council and was handed the pin of the hand of the king by Pycelle. Eddard sat at the king's chair in the absence of the king and began the council meeting. My brother has ordered another tourney in honor of Lord Stark's appointment as Hand of the King. Renly Baratheon said. Another tourney? Wasn't the last tourney held at Prince Joffrey's Namaday? Pycelle asked in a tired fashion. 20,000 gold dragons for the winner of the jousting, 20,000 gold dragon for the winner of archery and 20,000 for the winner of melee. Can the treasury bear such expenses? Eddard asked. I will have to borrow the gold again, hopefully, the Lannisters will accommodate. We already owe them 3 million gold dragons, what's another 1,000,000? Littlefinger said with a smirk on his face. Are you telling me the crown is 3 million in debt? Eddard asked horrified. I am telling you that the crown is 6 million in debt. Littlefinger said. How could you have let this happen? What were you all thinking? Eddard shouted at his fellow council members. The king commands and hence we follow and find the money, my lord, Littlefinger replied. Eddard knew by the state of the city that the situation was bad, but he would never have guessed it was this bad. He knew Jon Arryn used to think of Robert as a son, but this was preposterous. Robert was like a spoiled child and Eddard needed to have a very serious talk with Robert about this. There will be no plans for a tourney. There will be no tourney. All of your incompetence to deal with each and every whim of the king has led to this travesty, but this is where it stops. Eddard said in a strong voice. But the king's order. Pycelle tried to say but was cut off by Eddard. The king's order is irrelevant. I want a detailed report on how you have gone into 6 million debt and to whom these debts are owed. I also want a record and books of all the taxpayers and all the people who are not paying taxes. I also want the figures of taxes being paid by all the kingdoms. I want this debt gone within 2 years. Eddard said in a strong voice which shocked the council to its core. My lord, this is unprecedented. How do you expect this much debt to be gone in just 2 years? Moreover, isn't it the duty of the Master of Coin to review these documents? Varys asked. Well, seeing as the Master of Coin is an incompetent fool, I will have to review these documents myself. You all have been sedentary for long enough. Varys, I want a detailed report on which parts of this city are the most crime-infested and what parts require our immediate attention. Go among the people yourself if you need to and know what they lack and what they want. The people of this city have suffered long enough under an absentee king and an incompetent council. It all changes today. Eddard said as he stood up. My lord, you cannot blame us for all of this travesty and cannot question our honor just because the king wouldn't listen to us, Littlefinger said as he gritted his teeth in frustration. I can and will judge you as the king is a mere figurehead and this council is equally responsible for this folly. Renly, I want a report on how many men patrol these streets and how many of them are corrupt or repeatedly accused of committing crimes themselves. I also want to know how many more men are needed to patrol this city properly. Pycelle, send me a report of how many medicines you have and need and what is being done about the needs of healthcare for this city and what can be done to improve their conditions. You have 2 days, my lords, farewell. Eddard said as he walked out of a shocked small council meeting. Pycelle and Littlefinger were seething as they were repeatedly called incompetent and decided to do something about it later, but right now they had to hurry and get Eddard what he wanted. Varys was shocked at first but was immensely pleased by the approach of the new Lord Hand and got to work to find out the people's wants and needs. Renly was sweating as he knew Eddard was dead serious and he needed to prove his worth to him or he will be booted out of this council. Things were going to change soon in the King's Landing, that much was for sure. Winterfell, the North, 298 AC. We need to kill that cunt. We need to march down to King's Landing and behead that bitch for what she did to my brother. Robb raged as he paced inside the Lord's chamber. Keep your voice down, you fool, do you want everyone to know about this? We can't just march into King's Landing with a piece of her and say that the Queen conspired to kill our brother. You need to see the bigger picture, Robb. Jon commanded as he tried to calm his cousin. Well then, what should we do? Should we sit like incompetent fools and wait for that bitch of a queen to do something else before we make our move? Or should we host her shit stain of a dwarf brother again in our halls after he comes back from the war? Robb asked angrily as he rounded on Jon. That is precisely what we will be doing. Damian said from his seat at his chair, staring into the roaring fire of the hearth. You cannot be serious. My brother, your cousin, was crippled and you want to do nothing? Robb asked angrily. Don't presume to know my actions, Robb. I never said I will do nothing. I said that I will host Tyrion, who is an innocent party in this and still deserves your courtesy, and wait for the Queen to make her next move before I make mine. Have none of you nincompoops given a thought as to why the Queen would resort to throwing a 10-year-old boy from a fucking tower? Damian asked in a quiet voice. Because she is a bitch. Robb and Jon replied as Damian looked at them with a deadpan face. No, you idiots, you know what, never mind. I will explain it myself. The Queen was caught doing something so sensitive that the spreading of this information would risk her position and something that a 10-year-old can understand and narrate to others. To silence Bran she chucked him out of the tower, which worked by the way, and now Bran remembers nothing. There are only a few things she could have been doing to compromise her position as the Queen. Damian said victoriously as he started at his two brothers for the remaining answer. When both of them stared at him with confused faces he sighed in exasperation and continued his own answer. She was most likely fucking someone, you idiots, someone who was definitely not our king. But the question still remains, who was she fucking? Once I find out who it was, then I will get to a plan on destroying both of them, as both of them are party to the crime of harming my family and they will pay for their crimes in blood. Jon and Robb both stared at Damian in silence as they comprehended the graveness of the situation at hand. Jon asked Damian, what are you going to do next? Mother and Aunt Catelyn are getting impatient and suspect we are hiding something from them. What are we to do if they ask us about the allegiance of the assassin? Damian started sweating as he remembered both his aunt and his mother breathing down his neck to find who would dare harm Bran, and he was convinced that if he didn't tell them something very soon, they will definitely kill him. He needed to do something about this situation, but for now, he needed a distraction. Past few days had been hectic with Bran waking up and them traveling to Winterfell. Damian immediately asked Qyburn to treat Bran. Though Bran could not walk anymore, Qyburn made crutches and a wheelchair for him to move, whereas a saddle was designed with the help of Lord Tyrion so that Bran could ride, for which Damian was eternally grateful to Tyrion for returning his cousin's smile. We are going hunting. We need a distraction from all this, and hunting will do just that. Damian declared as he stood up and made his way out of his office, followed by Jon and Robb. On their way out they were immediately set upon by Ashura and Catelyn as vultures jumped on a piece of meat. Where are you going? Have you found out who would dare harm your cousin Damian? I want him found and executed as soon as possible. Ashura declared with a nodding Caitlin at her side. My men are doing their best, mother. Soon we will find them and we will bring the perpetrator of this crime to justice. I promise you, Aunt Caitlin, that blood will be paid with blood for this. Damien assured them as he hugged them and kissed their cheeks. Then where are you going? Ashura asked as she glared at her eldest and youngest, who started to sweat profusely, much to Rob's and Caitlin's amusement. We decided to go to the city. Yes, that's why we are going outside. You know how much the people need us and we need to show Rob how this city runs. Ha ha, Damien finished as he and John laughed awkwardly at the end. Then why are you carrying your hunting spears? Ashura asked as she glared at her sons. Silence followed this question, followed by Ashura scolding Damien and John for wasting their times and including Rob in their shenanigans, who was laughing as his cousins begged his aunt to let go of their ears. Ashura finally relented when Rob told her that they needed a much-needed break and allowed them to go hunting. As soon as the boys went outside, they immediately decided to tour the city first and then go hunting. Winter City looked like a paradise on earth, with wide roads, shops, and schools on every street and corner. Bathhouses and amphitheaters had great grandeur designs and cleanliness was maintained overall by the people. Winter guards posted at every block of the city for quick action and better security, with great thriving commerce and beautifully built temples for the seven. As the three boys were about to cross a relatively abandoned street, they heard someone shouting for help. Immediately the boys decided to help whoever was in distress, and when they arrived at the scene they found a strange scene. Surrounded by 4 winter guards was a girl who was almost their age. She had her hair covered, but her purple eyes described the terror she felt in this position. The boys decided to hide and decided to hear what the guards were saying. Looks like we found ourselves a pretty one, boys. No one is around here and we still have time before we report to our captain. What do you say we have some fun, boys? The leader said in a leery tone, which was followed by snickers of his group mates. Please, let me go. I didn't know this area was restricted. I just came here for a walk. Aren't you the people's protector? You know what will happen if Lord Stark found out about what you are about to do. Do you know the punishment of rape? Please let me go and I will not report this to anyone, I swear. The girl said in a frightened tone. Her plea brought a halt in the guards' steps as they contemplated her threat. It was true that if they were found guilty of rape they will be crucified, but no one was around, so they had other plans. No one is around here, darling. Once we are done with you we will slit your throat and bury you somewhere and no one will find you, the leader said in a sinister voice as he slowly advanced towards her. The girl, who was openly weeping by now, begged them again, please, my lords. You are meant to be our protectors. The North is supposed to be better than other kingdoms. Please don't do this. With each passing moment John and Rob looked angrier, but when they looked at Damien they stepped back in fear, for he looked like the devil incarnate. He was beyond furious these past few days and this just pushed him over the edge. He quietly commanded John to bring any of the forces he could find over here. He was going to make an example out of these guys. We are your protectors, honey. It's time to pay for our protection, said the leader as he laughed. I don't think we should do it. What if someone found us? One of them whispered. Relax, we will kill the bitch once we are done with her cunt. Besides, who is going to trust her over us? Another guard said. I will, said a voice from behind them. When the guards turned to see who the intruder was they went pale in terror. The girl sobbed joyously as she made a run for her savior and immediately hugged him and cried into his neck as she desperately held him. It's all right, everything will be all right. You don't need to be scared anymore. So long as I am your lord, none of my loyal and law-abiding citizens shall fear anything. Damien assured the girl as he consoled her as she stopped crying. He then passed the girl to Rob, who tried to calm her, as he turned towards the 4 guards who were shaking with fear. Soon everyone heard the grooves of many horses and found John with the captain of the soldiers in front of them, as well as 10 other guards. As soon as the guards saw Damien, they took a knee and stared in confusion at their 4 comrades who were pale and shaking. Damien beckoned them to stand and beckoned the captain to come near him. As the captain complied, Damien asked, Are these 4 part of your regiment, captain? Yes, my lord, the captain replied. The next moment the captain was on the floor holding his nose as it bled profusely. Damien, who had punched the captain, commanded him to stand up, and he did. He then asked, "Do you know why I punched you, Captain?" "No, my lord," the captain replied as he held his nose in pain. "Because you are their captain, and you will also pay for their sins as you bear responsibility for them," Damien said angrily. "What have they done, my lord?" the captain asked, now looking at the four in resentment. "They tried to rape an innocent civilian of this city, and in doing so broke two of my laws. The law against rape and the law of misuse of power," Damien said in a terrifyingly low voice. "What is to be done with them, my lord?" Captain asked as he looked at his four men with disgust and contempt. "Skin them slowly. Once you are done, crucify them for the world to see what happens when you go against my laws," Damien said in a strong voice. Everyone was shocked except John and Rob. They knew Damien was going to do something like this, and they couldn't blame him for it. After all, it was the law of the land to crucify the rapists. As the four crying guards were dragged away to carry out the sentence, Damien turned towards the girl he had just rescued. "It's going to be all right, my lady," he assured the girl by placing a hand on her head, which accidentally stripped the cover she had on her head. There stood the girl with brown hair streaked by a line of silver on one side of her hair. Beautiful, olive-skinned, with purple eyes that widened in horror as she realized her hair was on full display. She immediately covered her hair and looked at the three boys with unadulterated fear in her eyes, and found the three boys looking at her with slack jaws. Damien stared at her for a moment longer, but then he found his voice again and said, "Well, isn't this surprising? Welcome to Winterfell, Rhaenys Targaryen. Aren't you supposed to be dead?" Chapter 16, The Secret. Chapter 16. The Secret. Winterfell, the North, 298 AC. It was a beautiful day. The birds chirping, the castle of Winterfell filled with serene sunlight which enhanced its natural aesthetics and beauty. This peaceful scenery is disturbed by the screams of the Warden of Winterfell. "How dare you try to arrest Elia's daughter?" Ashura asked her eldest as she tried to crush his head under her feet. "Ow, ow, ow, mother, have mercy please. I didn't try to arrest her, we just brought her in for her own protection and to ask her some questions." Damien pleaded for his life under her mother's feet. As soon as Rhaenys was brought in by Damien, Rob and John, chaos ensued in the ancient castle of Winterfell. Ashura started to bawl with Rhaenys as they both hugged each other for support, followed by Ashura trying to crush Damien's head when he suggested that Rhaenys needed to be brought in for questioning. We find Damien groaning in pain in the floor, with John trying to calm Ashura down. Rob was having the time of his life as he saw his cousin suffering in such a comical fashion, and Catelyn was simply chuckling at her nephew's misfortune. Rhaenys was plain horrified when she saw Damien the Impaler, writhing on the floor begging for mercy from his own mother. Rhaenys remembered Ashura. After all, Ashura was the lady of honor in service of her mother. As soon as Rhaenys saw Ashura, her fears of being executed abated a little bit and she started crying a little. She never expected that the most fearsome warden on the continent, who had the reputation of being utterly ruthless and cruel whenever necessary, was so scared of his own mother. The scene of Ashura threatening Damien would have been hilarious for her had it not so completely absurd. In Rhaenys' mind, the image of a ruthless and cruel Damien was completely shattered and she calmed down a little. She started to hope that maybe Aunt Ashura could save her from Robert and Damien's wrath. As a furious Ashura was pulled away by John and a laughing Rob was dragged away by Catelyn, Damien slowly stood up and faced Rhaenys, who was looking at him with a small but beautiful smile. Immediately Damien started to fight his rising blush as his fearsome reputation was completely obliterated by his own mother's. "Are you all right?" Rhaenys asked as she looked at Damien with a little apprehension. "I am fine," Damien replied as he fixed his hair. "I didn't know you knew my mother, Your Grace. If I did, I would have brought you in with all the courtesies befitting a queen. I am not and never will be a queen," Rhaenys said, filled with melancholy. "My mother was a queen, and what did that get her except for humiliation and pain? Even her death was painful and horrifying. Forgive me, Your Grace. It wasn't my intention to make you reminisce something that is clearly painful for you." But Damien said in a serious voice, "I need you to answer a few questions, beginning with the most obvious one: how are you still alive?" Rhaenys took a long breath to calm her uneven nerves and began her long and perilous tale. Rhaenys remembered it all as clearly as it was yesterday. The years that have since passed had indeed dulled the pain, but the wound of that day will forever be fresh on her psyche. Flashback, King's Landing, on the day of the sacking. Please your grace, you have to run. Tywin's mad dogs are already at the gates of the Red Keep. We have to get you away from here. Varys pled as he disobeyed the Mad King and tried to save the Queen and her children. No, I will not leave my loyal guards and household alone in this time of great peril. What kind of queen would I be if turned tail and ran? Elia asked as she looked at Varys with sad eyes. I will not abandon my people and my home. I will plead with Lord Tywin to spare my children. He will surely see the strength it will provide his position, to have the Queen and her children as bargaining chips. But what if he doesn't listen to you? It's too great a risk, my queen, please. Varys begged for her queen to reconsider. If not for yourself then for you children, I beg you your grace, please reconsider. No, Elia said in a determined voice. I will not run, Varys. Rhaenys, go to your room and wait for my handmaiden to come and get you. Varys, please escort Rhaenys to her room. Varys looked truly sad as he escorted a frightened Rhaenys back to her room, but suddenly he gained a determined expression and turned to Rhaenys and knelt down to her level and begged with her. If he couldn't save them all, he would save at least one of them. My princess, Varys began in a grave and frightening tone. You must escape. My man will escort you to the port where you will be taken to Essos. Please princess, you must escape or they will kill you. But my mother. A very frightened Rhaenys began but was cut off by Varys as he pled again. Please, princess. You must escape. I will save your mother and brother too, but you have to escape as quickly as you can. We don't have any more time, princess, please. Varys begged as he looked at the now weeping Rhaenys and hugged her for the last time and ordered his man to escape with her. For the first time in her life, Rhaenys defied her mother and chose to run as Varys told her. Fear addled her mind and she couldn't stop crying as her protector scooped her in his arms and ran out of the Red Keep. But fate didn't take you very far when you are standing at the heart of chaos, and chaos collected its first due. The guard who was carrying her saw some Lannister soldiers making their way towards them and immediately ordered the princess to run, and run she did. She ran ignoring the shouts and chaos that surrounded her, and she ran until she couldn't run anymore and stumbled into a man with grey tunic and pants. As the princess looked at the soldier, she noticed a difference in the clothing of this soldier, as it was not Lannister red but grey. She knew this was it for her and she started bawling her eyes out. After all, she didn't want to die. But something unexpected happened. In the heart of darkness sometimes light makes its way, and in this moment of utter chaos fate finally smiled on the little princess as she was immediately enveloped in a hug. Rhaenys didn't even care at this point and she just bawled her eyes out in the arms of this soldier who tried his best to calm her down. When she couldn't cry anymore, she fell asleep in the soldier's arms, never expecting to wake up from this sleep. But when she opened her eyes the next time, she was surprised to find herself hung in a cloth bag from the back of the very soldier that comforted her. You are finally awake, little one? The soldier asked her as he pulled her from her bag and hugged her. This was too much for the little princess. In the past few days of darkness and cruelty, a small gesture of love was all it took for Rhaenys to weep again and desperately hold on to the soldier for any familial comfort she could find. The soldier immediately recognized her and sheltered her from the rest of his fellow soldiers. This soldier was not a Lannister but from the north. He was a part of Eddard Stark's forces, and after finding out what happened to the Queen and her children, he was more determined than ever to protect the princess. Together Rhaenys and the soldier made their way back into the north, where he raised her as his own daughter. He even gave her a name, Elia. For little Rhaenys, her new father became her whole world. As the years went by and Rhaenys came to know the truth of what happened to her real father, mother and brother, she came to resent the Starks, Baratheons and above all else, the Lannisters. She swore vengeance against them, but with the reforms that the North enacted, she came to see the Starks in a different light. Here was a Lord Stark who was 3 years younger than her, yet he completely transformed the North. Here was a lord who went to war for his people at the tender age of 9 and surprised everyone by actually winning. Here was a lord who thought of the commerce first and nobility later. Here was a lord who was loved by millions and hated by Rhaenys. But people forget that time is a wonderful healer, and the weight of vengeance far supersedes the weight anyone has the capacity to carry. So with the reforms in the North, the betterment of commoners everywhere and her new father's death when she was 15, Rhaenys finally let go of all her hate. She decided to forever remain a liar, a practitioner healer in the service of Winterfell. She thought she would devote her life to saving others so that nobody would suffer as she did, but fate had different things in mind. Which brings us back to now. Present day, Winterfell. As Damian heard the princess's tale, he couldn't help but feel proud of his own accomplishments and pity the poor princess who has only known misfortune all her life. Here was a brave princess who lost everything and had every right to hate him, even if it's born out of irrationality. But her golden heart forgave him and his family. So the princess began cautiously. "Should I await my execution orders, Lord Stark?" Rhaenys asked in a resigned tone. She knew Starks were family to King Robert and the king's hatred for anything Targaryen was legendary. She knew the moment her identity was revealed that this could only lead to the chopping block. She knew her borrowed time was over. As she began to contemplate and accept the inevitability of death, she slowly began to weep. Partly because of her inevitable death, but the main reason the princess wept was because she was still the same cowardly little girl who ran away and let her family be killed when she lived thousands of miles away in comfort. As she wept silently when suddenly she felt a hand on her chin and she was forced to look into the beautiful amethyst eyes of the Warden of the North. He looked worried and sad at the same time. "Why do you cry, Your Grace?" Damian asked as he looked at the crying princess with pity and worry. "Because after all these years, I am still a coward, afraid of death. I ran away because I was afraid when they killed my family, and now again, when death finally comes to take me, I am still scared of dying. I am still a coward." Rhaenys confessed as she wept furiously. "You are not a coward, Your Grace," Damian said as he touched his forehead with the princess and wiped her beautiful eyes which were full of fear and tears. "It's natural to be afraid of death. Without the fear of death, humanity will lack the spirit to achieve something extraordinary in the drive to survive. You think you are the only one who is afraid of death, but you lack the knowledge that it's the fear of death that drives humanity to the path of excellence. In strive of a better life, humanity betters the society as whole. The fear of death gives us strength, strength to be extraordinary. The fear of death doesn't make you a coward, it just makes you as normal and as extraordinary as the rest of humanity." Damian continued as he looked into the now attentive princess's eyes. "It is difficult to comprehend, despite its simplicity. But in the end," Damian said as he smiled at the princess as he finally enveloped her in a hug, "we are all just humans. You who had the courage to forgive her family's murderers and move can never be a coward. You are the bravest person I had the pleasure of meeting, Your Grace." After so many years, Rhaenys finally felt at rest as she held Damian tightly and cried as she buried her face into his neck. Damian's warmth and words gave her enough courage and she cried in liberation from fear and acceptance of her own mortality. I am ready to die, my lord," Rhaenys whispered in Damian's ears as she refused to let go of his warmth. "Well, too bad, princess. Because I am not ready to kill you just yet. You entrusted me with your secret, it would be terrible manners for me to not reveal my own little secret to you. You are not the only living child of Rhaegar Targaryen in this castle," Damian whispered in her ears. "King's Landing, the Crown Lands. You would dare lecture me, your king? I brought you here to help me, not to take away the last pieces of joy I have left." Robert roared as he stood face to face with an equally furious Eddard. The news of cancelling the tourney didn't sit well with Robert, but what infuriated him further was that his friend was calling him an incompetent and vain king. He knew he had not been a good king by any standard, but he was a hell of a lot better than the Mad King, and he would not stand for anyone calling him incompetent and vain. When the Mad King died, people expected their situation to improve, Robert. But you drowned in your own grief, and now the kingdom is 6 million in debt with absolutely nothing to show for it. This is the height of incompetence and vanity, and your numbers speak for themselves," Eddard roared back. Robert would have crushed anyone else for this insolence, but Eddard and he had always tussled like this. Eddard was the level-headed one, whereas Robert was the furious one. Eddard was the Jon to Robert's Damian in his mind. Robert knew Eddard spoke the truth, but that didn't make it any less insulting. "Careful, Ned. Be careful of how you speak to me. I am the king," Robert roared as a show of power. "If you are a king, then act like one." Remember what John used to tell us, a good king only lives and dies for his kingdom. Here, you sit on your fat ass as the rest of your kingdom starves. I will not tolerate this, Robert. You brought me here to help you and save you, but it also means that I have to save you from yourself. Eddard roared back. Both of them looked at each other with intense eyes and both awaited the blow they were expecting from the other, but slowly the tension abated. Jaime and Barristan released their breath as Robert slowly walked away from Eddard and sat in his chair with his eyes full of melancholy. What would you have me do, Ned? Robert asked Eddard in a defeated tone. Lead your people, Robert, that's what a great king does. Then need a good leader to show them that they don't have to starve. They need you to show them that the poverty ended with the Targaryen regime and that your regime brings a peaceful and beautiful tomorrow. Eddard said as he pled with his friend. If you truly want to burn away the name Targaryen from the minds of the people of the capital, then be the king that washes away the sins of all the past Targaryen king, and then nobody would remember them. They will burn their name in effigy and hail you as their savior. Be their savior, Robert. Eddard asked as he knelt beside his friend and his king. Robert looked as if the fire had returned to his eyes, and he looked at Eddard full of passion and finally said, Do what you must.